Hello, everyone. Welcome in. We'll give people just a few minutes to get settled. And as you're coming in, I'll read my intro. Welcome to the live stream. I will be covering updates on the war in Iran that has spread to other countries, and we'll also do live monitoring of any situations that may arise. Hit the like on the way in. It helps the algorithm push us out to other people, and it's the best way to support us. If you want to support in other ways, you can always become a channel member, pick up some merch, buy affiliate products on my Amazon storefront, or you can donate. All the links are in the description of this video. Thanks to all those that serve in the military and have family that serve as well. Hey, Dulcinea, how's it going? Love and Compassion says hit that like. Suzanne Truth, welcome to the stream. There have been some major escalations today. The largest missile attack of the entire war so far has been launched by Iran, and that might be in regards to their religious holiday as well. Hey, Casey, how's it going? Kentucky girl, welcome, welcome. But yeah, there's been a lot going on. When I woke up this morning, I woke up to nonstop alarms, basically, and I had to shut the alarms off. They were just nonstop, and the 24/7 stream on Offscript Radio is also automated now. So if you go over there, you will see that if the alerts go off or the alarms go off, it will automatically switch to the Israel cameras. And then when those alerts have been done for like 10 minutes, then it goes back to the regular cycle of all the dashboard and stuff. Yeah, they did go a little crazy, for sure. All right, we'll give it just one more minute here. Where's everyone watching from? I don't know if you guys heard, but Nebraska was on fire. It still might be. It was the biggest fire that we've ever had. It was like central and western Nebraska. So far, I've only heard of one casualty, and it was a senior citizen. They basically got caught in her house, and they couldn't get her out in time. But I think everyone else had been airlifted out and stuff, so that's good. All right, so we'll go ahead and get started with the news, and then we'll get into clips and then live monitoring. This is the last 24 hours of the Middle East war, Iran and Israel, and obviously the Gulf states. But Israel's strike on Iran's South Pars gas field triggered massive escalation. So we've seen the largest missile volley so far that has gone through from Iran to Israel happened today, or overnight, I should say. Iran retaliated by striking oil and gas infrastructure across the Gulf states: Saudi, UAE, Qatar, Bahrain, and Kuwait. Qatar lost 15 to 20% of its liquid natural gas capacity. Bahrain refineries hit. Iraq is cutting output. And Iran is warning zero restraint if energy sites are hit again. So we're already seeing Iran obviously has the capability of taking these things out pretty easily, it seems. I don't know if there's no protection on them or what's going on with that, but they're hitting energy infrastructure at will at this point. So that's pretty unnerving, considering that it affects the entire globe. Strait of Hormuz, Iran continues disrupting shipping, major choke point effectively blocking. U.S. launched operations to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, and they are still sending troops. As of right now, we're looking at thousands of troops. I don't know what that in number is for the thousands, but people estimate we're going to have tens of thousands more sent over time. Over 120 Iranian boats were destroyed, but threats are still active, and some of them were being hit by a A-10 Warthog, which is a very heavy machine gun airplane. And as far as buildup, there's thousands more U.S. Marines. I don't know if it's only Marines so far. And there's warships deployed to the region. We'll look at some of that stuff in the clips. A-10s and Apache helicopters are actively engaging Iranian naval forces, including their fast boats, which they've deployed. And the U.S. is considering expanding operations and blockades. This is shifting from strikes to sustained regional war. And this is something where we were initially told it would be a few weeks. We're already multiple weeks in, so not good. We had a major incident too. An F-35 fighter jet was hit, likely by Iranian fire. They did an emergency landing at a Middle East base, and it's the first confirmed damage to high-end U.S. stealth aircraft in a conflict. This has been confirmed as a hit of some sort. I don't know if it was missiles or something else, but the pilot has suffered shrapnel damage and is expected to survive. He did a crash landing, and it looks like the Iranians were somehow able to target and take down a F-35, something that was supposed to not be able to be seen. So I heard some rumors of how they might have done it, kind of going old school and that type of thing. But it's looking like, the stealth is no longer stealthy. And I see some of you guys are saying something similar in the chat as well. So I would agree with that sentiment. Iran threatened global targets, including tourism sites, continued missile and drone production despite heavy losses, and missile strikes ongoing against Israel and regional targets. So Iran is signaling that this war is going to go outside of the Middle East. They're also basically saying for all of their different operatives and citizens and cells around the world to activate and start causing chaos, which we've already seen in some places. As far as the economy, oil prices have surged past $100 to $119 per barrel. Global gas prices are spiking. The IEA released 400 million barrels from the reserves to try to help with prices. And airlines, markets, and supply chains have been hit pretty hard. So this is now a global economic crisis, not just a regional war in the Middle East, which is huge. And, a lot of people knew this would happen, and that's why they didn't want to go to war in the first place. And they're still calling it an armed conflict. They're not officially calling this a war. Trump calls NATO allies cowards for not assisting. Europe and global powers push for de-escalation. And Poland evacuates troops from Iraq because security is deteriorating. And we'll see that other people have been pulled out of Iraq as well. 1,300 plus dead in Iran, officially. I'm sure it's higher than that. There's over 1,000 dead in Lebanon. U.S. casualties obviously are confirmed. Last I heard, it was 11 or 12. I'll have to double check and see what that number is. I haven't heard of any new numbers that have come out yet, and they might be holding that on purpose. There's major infrastructure damage across the entire region. We have major, billion-dollar satellites that have been destroyed that are essential for seeing incoming missiles and missile launches and stuff around the entire globe. And I think that was partially from, we had the allegations that Russia and China were sharing targeting information directly to Iran. And clearly they used it. And most of the hits were drones. We have... Let's see. It looks like Karg Island is coming up again. But I know I have some clips around that, so we'll look at that there. So let's go ahead and jump into our clips. I don't see any alerts active right now. And I'm monitoring everything during these streams, so I can hear all the EAMs, I can hear all the alarms and everything else. So if anything goes off, then I will definitely switch over. But as of right now, it's looking pretty quiet, which an hour or two ago it was not. My 24/7 stream had a bunch of emergency action messages and alarms and stuff going off. All right, let me pull this over here. Let's go to our clips. And let me know again if the clips are too loud. That's something that I don't have a lot of control over. I can try and bring them down in X, but it seems like for some reason the X videos are just insanely loud. And everything else in the system is about where it needs to be, so... let's see. I'll get to that here in a second, PJ. So NATO announced that its mission is complete in Iraq, and they've been relocated to Europe. So again, we're seeing that Iraq, there's something going on there, right? Something we're not necessarily being told. Like maybe they're getting overwhelmed, or they've had too many losses already. There's unconfirmed rumors that Tulsi Gabbard is going to resign in the aftermath of her Senate hearing, and also from Joe Kent resigning. And I think a lot of us saw that coming. Doesn't really come as a surprise. And shout out to Diligent Denizen and all these people that I show on here, World Source News. You'll see some more open source intel. They're always bringing great information. Trump is talking about his doctor. And this looks like it. Hopefully it's a good volume. Let me know.
He was favored to win easily, and we wiped him out, right, Ron? And he's been a congressman. He's one of the most popular people in Congress, but I don't care about that. I just care that he was my doctor, and he said I'm the healthiest human being he's ever. Ronnie, am I healthier than these guys back here?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. See, this is why.
Can you guys hear that okay? Is that level pretty good? But he's basically just, reiterating how healthy he is, and his doctor is reiterating how healthy he is, and says he's healthier than the guys that are behind him. So he's in good spirits. And as a lot of you may not have heard, Chuck Norris passed this morning. I think it was this morning, early last night. But he ended up going to a hospital in Hawaii for an emergency issue that happened, and he didn't make it through the night. So he is, there's all kinds of news on it everywhere, but he was 86, and just like 10 days ago, he had a post talking about, how fit and healthy he was and everything, and so now I guess he's gonna get some rest finally. But it's interesting, the timing, because I was thinking about the war and everything else going on in the world. And Chuck Norris, people make these jokes and stuff that he's like invincible and like the strongest man alive and no one can fight him and beat him and stuff. So, excuse me. So I found it interesting, the timing. I was like, if Chuck Norris is going down, what hope do the rest of us have, right? Obviously half joking, but so rest in peace. There was some B-52s that are apparently using French airspace. So we know that the de Gaulle aircraft carrier is in the Middle East, but it looks like they're actually hosting some of our B-52s. And I don't know if that's going to cause, them to be targeted as well. But obviously them sending the aircraft carrier is already a escalation there. And here is Chuck Norris meeting with Benjamin Netanyahu. He was apparently a very huge supporter of Israel.
So,
I've been well. Good to see you, Prime Minister.
it's good to see you.
Well, thank you.
Listen, Israel was strong, but it's indestructible now.
You got to meet my wife, Gina.
Hello,
It's a
how are
pleasure.
you? How are
Thank
you?
you for having us, Prime Minister.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
You too.
I think we can tell our security people to leave. We don't need them anymore.
Oh, gosh, I've been
listen.
looking forward to this.
Thanks for all that support.
Oh, believe me, you'll always have my support.
It's
You know,
deeply
and-
appreciated.
Yeah. When all that was coming down, I didn't know what to do. Of course, my wife says, I know what to do. I'm calling over there. So she's very aggressive in that
Thank you.
respect.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Hi.
These are our friends. This
Hello.
is Larry.
It's an honor.
So he was, it's interesting because obviously, like a lot of you are saying, like he's 86 years old. He's lived a, fairly decently long life for an American male, right? But the timing's just interesting. Like this war is going on, he passes away, and then these videos and things are coming out of his support for Israel. So I just thought the timing was interesting. Trump is saying we can't let these lunatics have nuclear weapons. A lot of you know about that. He says they want to take over the Middle East. I don't know. I'd never heard anything like that. That Iran was like plotting to take over all the other nations over there, but apparently that's a thing. Lukashenko said that U.S. has proposed a big deal covering diplomatic and economic relations. He added that Trump invited him to Mar-a-Lago in Florida to discuss it. So that should be interesting. There was a fire that broke out. I'll mute this here, but you can see there's video, and it looks like they filmed it themselves, but they went into a Czech facility linked to Israel's Elbit system, and they caused a fire. They called themselves the Earthquake Faction, and they released this video of them dumping gasoline or some kind of flammable liquid all around the offices and then lighting it on fire. So some kind of like terror type hit, but they wanted credit for it. U.S. and Central Intelligence released this video showing an A-10 Warthog. And this is the A-10 after just got done refueling. And I don't know if a lot of people realize it, but our planes, a lot of our Air Force is extremely old, decades and decades old. But I thought it was kind of cool to see that footage. Trump says we want to talk to Iran, but there's no one to talk to. Nobody wants to be a leader in Iran anymore. And I assume that was partially sarcastic, but it does seem like anyone that comes up gets taken out. And I think the Khamenei's son, Machaba, you know, there's rumors that are coming out that he's still reporting and saying things and leading. But we also heard that he was in Russia and he had major surgery. And then I've also heard that he was in a coma and died. So don't really know what's going on with that. We heard about Pentagon. Armed police are currently on the scene in the Manley Park area of Manchester, UK, following reports of a man wearing what appeared to be a suicide vest. So again, this goes back to mobilizing terror cells and things like that around the world. Pentagon is sending 3 warships and thousands of additional Marines to the Middle East. Roughly 2,200 to 2,500 Marines from the California-based USS Boxer Amphibious Ready Group and the 11th Expeditionary Unit are heading to the U.S. Central Command. Someone emailed me earlier, and actually several people have, and are telling me that their kids are getting marching orders, and in Oklahoma and other states. So I think this is more widespread than just this 2,500 Marines. We know that Chuck passed. This is an impact. We had, like I said, we had some major attacks. Iran kind of went rogue. And the largest missile volleys that they've done up to this point happened in the last, 12 to 24 hours. And this was some damage to Old Jerusalem. I think it's cluster munitions.
Why?
So you can see how powerful these things are, these individual sites. And the Turkish Ministry of Defense, there was something that came out that said that there were sirens, and there were. So you could hear them go off. But everyone's saying that, at least Turkey is saying that the warnings were false and there was no attack. So I don't know if they got attacked and they're trying to hide it, or if they legitimately didn't get attacked, but then why would their sirens go off unless they're doing a test, which they usually announce. So that was kind of interesting. This is something that I've thought about too during this war. The Lebanese MP, Camille Chamoun, is defending the IDF, and he's saying it's the only army I've ever seen that warns the local population that it's going to bomb and ask for evacuations of civilians. That's one thing I've always talked about too. They always drop pamphlets. They'll even hack, software on phones and things to make sure people get warned properly. And then they also go out and they do, they knock. So they do a small ammunition above the building that doesn't hit the building to alert people below that they're going to hit it with bigger strikes coming up shortly. So I would agree they're humane from that aspect. This has caused major issues. So people are asking if this guy was the target, but this is RT, which is a Russian press company. And a strike happened basically on top of them. It didn't hit them directly, and I think there may have been some shrapnel and stuff, but this was caught live on TV. And now Russia is pissed.
Further rocket attacks were reported against Nahariya and admitted.
And as you can see, this doesn't show any gore or anything like that. It doesn't show anyone getting hurt, but it was right there. It was feet from him. So luckily he heard it and jumped, but Russia is all over that now. We've heard several different assassinations, which is probably part of why, in addition to their holiday, there were so many missiles fired today. But it looks like General Mehdi Ghoreshi, IRGC Air Force commander, has been eliminated. There's a attack on Harvard. Trump administration has sued Harvard University on Friday, alleging it failed to protect Jewish and Israeli students and is seeking to recover billions in taxpayer funds. Now, we know that Trump has been going back and forth with Harvard on multiple different issues, not just that one. But he said that Harvard was deliberately indifferent to campus hostility and intentionally failed to enforce rules, effectively denying equal access to education. This is the celebration. This is for Eid al-Fitr. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Eid al-Fitr, their holiday. And this is in St. Petersburg, Russia. And this just goes to show how many of these people are all around the world. A lot of Muslims everywhere. So you can see many of them. It does seem peaceful, right? It's a peaceful celebration of whatever that holiday is made up of. But I didn't see any protests. I didn't see any fights. They're going out and they're praying in the streets. UAE Ministry of Defense says they had 4 ballistic missiles and 26 UAVs that they intercepted. So again, I mean, these people they're just being consistently attacked. It hasn't really stopped since the war started. Israel says it struck over 2,000 Hezbollah targets in Lebanon since the group entered the fight, destroying command centers, weapon depots, and rocket launch sites, killing more than 570 militants and many leaders. Many of their high-level leadership have also been targeted and killed. There was that impact in Jerusalem that we saw earlier in the old city. There's we can see, we saw the damage earlier. You can see there's some smoke and stuff coming up. But we also saw that El Aqsa had a rocket or missile or some shrapnel or something land near it. So they're not really avoiding these sites. And I don't know if it's on purpose. I don't know if it's from interceptors or whatever, but it's happening. Argentine President Javier Milei says Iran is a tyranny spreading terror and pledges Argentina stands with the U.S. and Israel, signaling readiness to offer military support if requested. Urgent IDF evacuation order for all residents in southern Lebanon, located south of the Zahrani River, to move north. That's where a lot of the rockets and missiles have been launched from, is in this area. So they're telling residents to move because they're going to probably lay into this pretty hard. And like, again, they're warning people. But this also allows the enemy to move as well. So we'll see. Someone's saying BB dead. I've seen a lot of stuff that shows he was alive. And a lot of people saying it's AI and that kind of stuff. But we'll see. I think some of that's mixed in here. 2 more weeks of war in Iran could cost the U.S. more than an entire year of the Iraq invasion. That's according to Washington Post. It says Pentagon has already approached Congress for another $200 billion. And I think that Trump was calling it the America First movement or something like that. Basically saying, like, if you don't support it, it's like the single most important thing that the U.S. needs right now. Big airstrikes happening in Tehran. A lot of bunker busters and that kind of stuff happening. Likely like B-52s and B-1 bombers, B-1 Lancers. But you can see the difference in size and scale of these explosions compared to the ones we're seeing like in Lebanon, where there's just maybe a missile launched or a missile or rocket or something launched from a plane. Much more powerful. So I don't know if I agree with this or not, but this guy here, Guy Benson, he says, we're wasting taxpayer money on nonsense, but spending big to degrade the #1 killer of Americans, top terrorism exporter, and smash their nuclear ambitions, that's a good use of tax dollars. So you're starting to see some of the political pundits and stuff supporting that. This is some more strikes. These are bunker busters. So they're saying you can see an initial hit, which is when it goes in. So there's the missile, boom, it goes in. That's the first explosion. There's a second explosion underneath it. Third one. So that's kind of the idea behind the bunker buster is it goes into the ground or through concrete or whatever the structure is. It has that first initial hit, which is kinetic. It can cause kinetic damage. And then once it gets to a certain depth or hits a certain, usually it's a depth, but sometimes if it goes through an empty space and it hits something solid underneath, it'll go off. And they're just monstrous explosions underground, right? So you're causing major damage. And then we have Clash Report. He's saying that Ukraine has offered Qatar anti-drone support, which we know that Zelensky was sending all these different drone technicians and experts in defense and taking them down to the Middle East. But they're saying if you're going to do that, we want 12 Mirage 2000 jets. So Ukraine is trading their expertise in drone warfare for 12 Mirage jets. And how much is each jet? Cost of Mirage 2000 jet. What are we looking at here? If I could type today. There we go. Mirage 2000 jet is Wow. Between 65 million to over 100 million per unit. And they want 12. Holy crap. Well, good for you. This guy's always obviously anti-American, anti-U.S. But the woman says you're attacking gas fields in Qatar, and they aren't military targets. And the guy's saying we're hitting, U.S. linked assets. That's why they're hitting everyone else. We have some more oil refineries in Kuwait that have been hit. So this is interesting. I don't know if you've heard this story or not, but there was a guy. So there's the French naval Charles de Gaulle carrier, and it's in the Middle East. And a French naval officer unknowingly revealed the location of it from his workout app called Strava, which I've used before. His run recorded at sea made it possible to pinpoint the carrier's position in the Mediterranean near Cyprus. Although the carrier's deployment was public, sharing its exact real-time location is a serious security risk. So could you imagine you just go for a casual workout, and then all of a sudden you've given away all the operational security of your entire aircraft carrier and endangered the lives of thousands of people? I mean, that's insane. So, yeah, that's a no-go. That's not good. So I don't know what would have happened to this person, if they'd be arrested or, who knows what. But they have not been, as far as I know, they haven't been attacked or hit because of this. But obviously this is not good. So I'm sure they took everyone's, watches and different things that allow them to do this kind of thing. Yeah, Kentucky girl, the war has drastically shifted. It's gotten much more intense. More missiles being fired. More attacks to civilian areas. Hitting lots of infrastructure. Hitting lots of oil infrastructure. I know the desalination plants have been hit in the past. I haven't heard about them getting hit again. But pretty crazy stuff. So that is our basic news and our clips. And I'll keep monitoring. But I'll turn on Al Jazeera here. Let me go through chat and make sure I don't miss anything. Let's see. Did I see the video clip of Trump saying Cuba when asked about Cuba with the B-2 model on his desk? I did. It seems like they're going to want to be taking out anyone that's part of BRICS or anyone that has given us any problems recently. It's like in the last 10 years. Kentucky girl, are you and the kiddos feeling better, Trigger? We still have the cough and a little bit of tickle in our throat and that kind of stuff, but the kids are back to school today, and I think we're all turning towards a good direction. Thanks for asking. I have my cough drop. All right, yeah, I don't see any alarms or anything, so we'll go ahead and switch over to Al Jazeera. And turn the cam audio back on. And if anyone here is new, there's Off Script Radio is my second YouTube channel, and we do 27 monitoring over there. Obviously, I'm not there the whole time, but it has cams and intel and military radio EAMs and everything else is over there. The only thing it doesn't have from over here basically is the news, because you can't run the news unless you're commenting on it. But people hang out over there and just kind of monitor the war from there. And it's set up kind of slick too, because if an alarm or something goes off, then it switches to the Israel camera, the actual live cam. Then when that's done, after that alert's been done for like 10 minutes, then it goes back to cycling through all the different intel and all the other live cams as well. So it's pretty slick. You can also tag me on X. It's TriggerSmartHQ. And you can send tips to engcwarrior@gmail.com. If you know anyone getting deployed to the Middle East, I would definitely love to know about that. Make sure you guys hit that like, subscribe, and share this out. And if you are already not aware of this channel, I started off doing firearms and firearms training. I'm a firearms instructor. And then I started covering Charlie Kirk, and I did Charlie Kirk case for quite a while, like the last 5-6 months. And then I've been doing this war coverage since it started. but the majority of the war coverage and the 24/7 streams and even updates like this are going to live over on off-script radio, probably starting mid next week. I'm just waiting for that channel to get enough watch hours to be monetized. And then over here will just be the firearms training and any type of like investigatory stuff, any like podcast style stuff, interviews will all be on Trigger Smart still. All right, I will be right back, and let me get Al Jazeera on.
We had warned about it in advance. We did not turn this into a regional war simply because attacks are coming from countries in the region. Their military bases in the region are being used against us. It is the United States that has turned it into a regional war, not us.
I would like to understand your vision towards the Strait of Hormuz, the closure. You've been saying that everyone is still allowed to pass except for the enemies of Iran. Also, we've heard reports that Iran is putting a condition that there should be transactions in yuan for ships to pass. Also, we heard in the leader's statement that also probably Yemen could enter, and then there are a lot of indications Bab el-Mandab could close. Is Iran trying to suffocate the international economy?
من باز تکرار میکنم این جنگ ما نیست.
I will repeat, this war is not our war. We did not start it. The United States started it and is responsible for all the consequences of this war, human and financial, whether for Iran, for the region, or for the entire world. The United States must be held accountable. From our perspective, this is a waterway located next to Iran. Naturally, we will not allow our enemies to use this waterway. At the same time, a war is taking place around it, and naturally, many ships and countries may not want to use this route due to insecurity. Some countries contact us to discuss safe passage through the Strait of Hormuz, and we try to provide them with the conditions for such passage. In my view, we need to design new arrangements for the Strait of Hormuz and the way ships pass through it in the future, after the war, so that peaceful navigation through this waterway can be permanently maintained under clear regulations with consideration for Iran's interests and the interests of the region. I believe that after the war, the first step should be drafting a new protocol for the Strait of Hormuz. Naturally, this should be done between the countries that lie on both sides of the strait, as they are the principal parties in this matter, and it should guarantee that safe passage through the strait takes place under specific conditions.
So basically, they just want to have control of the strait, which technically makes sense for the region and what's happening over there. And they have their half, I guess, technically of it. But still not good. All right, let's look at our intel here really quick. Let's see where everything's at. So we have... I'll check the U.S. first. I want to look at our Poseidons and see if we have them still going off the coast. Poseidons are the planes that look for nuclear radiation and do recon and ISR. And I just looked to see, we've had them off the coast quite a bit near Florida, probably partially because of Trump and Mar-a-Lago, trying to keep it safe over there. But typically what they're looking for is Russian and Chinese subs. Let's see if any have been out. I'm looking to see if any that went over, out over the ocean, not just over the land. Looks like a lot of them are just staying over land. So we have this guy here. Where'd he go? He went down to El Salvador. Or took off. Interesting. So they're not really doing much over the water, which is not typical. Typically, they're out looking for submarines. And we had some the other day out in the Keys and Bahamas. We had some off the East Coast by Mar-a-Lago. One was up by North Carolina. Occasionally, you'll get them on the West Coast as well. But it looks like it's been pretty quiet. All the ones that I'm seeing basically staying over land at this point. And there are a few over here in the Middle East. One's just taken off. And that one, I can't trace its path very much, but there's one that always hangs out down here, just outside of Yemen and Oman. And occasionally, there'll be one over by Taiwan, but not currently. And time of day matters too. And obviously, they can also be there and have the transponders turned off, which means you can't see them. So that's always a possibility. So nothing out of the ordinary with that. Oh, someone has a motorcycle. So coming down here, we have our typical transport, a couple Poseidons. We have our Globemasters, which move heavy freight. Interesting. So here's some B-52s heading out. Well, one B-52. So these are the ones that drop the very heavy bombs. They do the major damage. So we have one right now that is heading towards Iraq. And it just turned its transponder off. So it's probably going to do a run right now. And like I said, they've really ramped up the attacks back and forth today between Iran and Israel and the U.S. So that B-52, we just caught it long enough to see that it's taken off towards Iraq. We have our Stratotankers, which refuel. And then we have some ISR planes. So kind of same as usual. I mean, and right now there's usually a lot more Stratotankers, so they might be refueling. Typically they'll turn off their transponders when they're refueling. And before there was a couple drones that hang out in this area, and they would basically be looking for launches from Syria or from Lebanon over towards Cyprus. They were kind of sitting here hanging out, and I haven't seen those in a while either. So it seems like, oh, there's one here. So this is one, I don't know if it's this exact one, but it is a MQ-4C Triton drone that flies out here. And we've seen it do it circling around in here, and also one that was over here by Cyprus. So this one looks like it's starting to do some rounds here. I don't know if this one can look for submarines, but I know it can do surveillance and recon. So kind of business as usual at this point. We can probably assume that the refuelers are refueling jets right now with their transponders turned off. And the few that we see with Oman are not refueling at the moment. All right. Strait of Hormuz. Looks like there's less ships in here than yesterday, at least on this side. And there's more kind of congested on this side. I haven't heard of any other like major hits on any tankers or anything lately. Doesn't mean it's not happening, but they're more focusing on the gas and natural gas infrastructure, the oil and natural gas that's been getting hit around this area. And, you know, 25% of the oil and stuff in the world goes through here. So this is really affecting everyone. Quiet enough pizza index. What does that mean? Because I saw earlier we had a few that were spiking at like 300%. But I think we'll probably see things pick up this evening, I'm guessing. Or maybe in the next couple hours. Because it's nighttime there now. And I would expect to see things ramp up. But we did see one thing different than the last couple days at least. We saw central and southern Israel getting targeted by missiles at the same time. And then recently we've only seen it basically just hitting Jerusalem, like targeting that general area. And then rockets and missiles have been coming from Lebanon, targeting basically everywhere. Someone asked earlier about the radiation spot in the U.S. So we typically have these all the time, at least somewhere. So this red one, 1664, is decently high. There's usually at least 2 or 3 at a time that are at least that high. So this one right here is in near Columbus, Ohio. I'm not sure if there's something there. It's not showing. It looks like it's... Now, see, this doesn't mean that the radiation is coming from here, but there's a sensor in this area. But it says Regal Touch Painting. That's interesting. So is the painting company working with nuclear radiation? But yeah, usually not anything to worry about. See, there's another one up here that just showed up. Over to McHenry. So there will be typically a few spread out. If there's one like in your general area that's red, that's something you can look into, but you typically don't worry about it. And then, you know, Middle East, Russia, Ukraine, Europe, nothing major going on. And we had one red when we first started looking at this morning. So it changes constantly. And these aren't every possible sensor that's out there. There are other ones, and there's independent ones that people put. They're personal ones. So we're not seeing everything that's going on, but it's all right. I wouldn't say it's like the end all be all. We have multiple earthquakes in the area. So we have 3 earthquakes that happened over here in Greece. We have a 4.9, 4.7, and a 4.6. And then we also had 2 of them, one near Shiraz. And remember, let me turn this down. So we had the one up in Shiraz, and this is the like 3rd or 4th one that has happened since the war began. And initially people were talking about the possibility of maybe they were doing some nuclear testing in Iran, right? And what you look for is a seismic reading that doesn't have any aftershocks. That's pretty typical, but it can have aftershocks. So if a nuke were to be tested in a certain area, it can trigger like a mini earthquake, right? So it's not always foolproof. And then we have another one down here. So, and there's been multiple in this area. So I think there was one yesterday that was maybe a little bit further down, but it is a seismically active area, so it's not uncommon. But yeah, someone's asking about fault lines. Let me see if I can pull up fault lines specifically there. See if they have any good imagery. I don't know if that's good enough. Let's see. Well, it's hard to find any good images of it. So maybe this might work. If it'll open. Well, it's not opening. So I went to like 3 different sites that claim to show the faults, but yes, there are faults that run through there, and it is a normally seismically active area. But again, what you're looking for is if the waveforms and stuff make sense. So if you see an earthquake, and the depth as well, but if you see an earthquake, you know, this 10 kilometers seem to be pretty standard, right? So you have a 10 kilometer deep over here by Shiraz in Nurabad, Iran. And then you have a 10 kilometer deep, 4.2 near Mor, Iran. What's the chance of them both being 10 kilometers deep that far apart? I don't know. But a lot of people think it's sketchy, but it's been going on for quite a while. But I think this red line here these might be the actual like plates and the lines, because this is the USGS. I don't know if there is a way to turn on more layers. Let's see. Plate boundaries, US faults. Yeah, it's not showing for this area. And then, of course, oil prices. Low of 92.47 and a high of 97.07, 97.40 right now. So I know some sources said like above 100, up to like 115. But, you know, it's doing like a roller coaster, right? Things get worse. They blow up a bunch of oil refineries and tankers and all that stuff. And then they say, you know what? We're going to release 500 barrels from the reserves. In Japan, you release them too. Just trying to keep the prices down. But we'll see how long they can actually keep that up. Because eventually, we're not going to be able to keep up with that. And it looks like, for some reason, YouTube is not letting me do polls or anything. I can't access the chat in their live view. So I can chat, but I can't do any polls or anything. So I would just say, if you are watching and you have access to chat, put a 1 if you think we're going to take over Kark Island, and put a 2 if you think that he's just threatening them to take the focus off of Strait of Hormuz. So 1 if you think we're actually going to take Kark Island, and 2 if you think he's just playing his 3D chess or 4D chess, whatever they call it. Yeah, I think a lot of people are thinking they're going to take it over. Let me look at crude oil price. So depending on which crude you're speaking of, the prices vary quite a bit. So let me show this here really quick. So WTI crude is 97, Brent crude is 110, Murban crude is 139. So depending on which one you're talking about, you know, there's a big difference in price, but WTI is up 2%, the other one's up 1%, one's up 13%. So it kind of depends on which one you're using and where it's at in the process, but still overall, you know, they're trying to keep the prices somewhat under control. But again, how long can they do that? How long is that going to be useful or efficient? I hear some music. Are they rocking out for their holiday? Is their holiday over? Someone says they feel like Trump is playing checkers in a chess game. Maybe that's why he hasn't had any major issues yet, because they don't know what he's doing. They don't know what game he's playing. There have been several nations that have said they're going to support in the Middle East. And then there's been others like Spain who said they're 100% against it and said it was an illegal war. So let me see if I can find where he was saying that from Spain. He is not happy with the war at all and says he doesn't support it anyway. He says we're not going to send any help, and he says that it's illegal. But in all fairness, that's kind of the way he's been in all the different conflicts. So we had 200-kilometer missiles that were fired from Hezbollah. So this is one thing that a lot of people aren't talking about. That thing is loud. Let me turn that down. So here we have Hezbollah typically will launch from Lebanon, and they'll hit northern Israel, but they're launching missiles all the way down here. So they don't only have rockets, they're also launching ballistic missiles. And obviously that's causing major issues because now Israel has to watch both directions. This is some other large strikes that were happening in Iran. So we've seen some of the damage to like old Israel and that kind of thing, but excuse me. But you can see there's some massive explosions back there. Could you imagine just you're at your apartment, your house, just hanging out, look down the street, huge mushroom cloud, and you can see when it hits. But yeah, that's a beast. UAE says this air defense is responding to fresh Iranian missile and drone attacks, so it's still ongoing. Israel conducted strikes against Iranian naval missile boats. More than 5 vessels were targeted. I don't know how many of these fast attack ships they have in Iran, but when they were showing the underground missile bunkers, it seemed like they had a lot. This is a B-52 It says most airplanes straighten down before touchdown or straighten up. The B-52 can land while crabbing thanks to landing gear that swivels. So as you can see here, it's not going straight down the runway. It landed with its wheels to the side like this. So very unique amongst airplanes. And you have to remember, these are like, what are they, 70 years old, I believe? Don't quote me on that, but I believe it's like 70 years. So kind of unique. Kind of like those Hummers. If you remember the Hummers doing the crab walk in the commercials and stuff. But for a plane that big, to be able to do something like that is pretty impressive. And Russia is attempting to break the U.S. blockade of Cuba. Is it raining? Sounds like it's raining there. Turn that down. But they're trying to break the naval blockade in Cuba. Trying to get through there and cause some problems. More fires in Qatar. Iranian strikes hit a gas facility. You can see more stuff on fire there. We have drones that are hitting in the Koya region of Iraq. This is part of why I think they're pulling people out, because Iranian drones are just hitting at will. Very powerful strikes. And you might be able to hear my dog barking. Let me see what he's barking at. All right. Mailman. We have some more impacts. This is more natural gas getting hit. So this back and forth, targeting each other's infrastructure and hitting oil and gas is, seems as though they've run out of military targets at this point, right? Or they're doing this just to make things as horrible possibly globally so that they can use that as an excuse to try and stop the war, piss off enough people, get enough countries fighting against the U.S. and Israel because of all the rises in prices of gas and everything else, natural gas. But good strategy, you know. This is rockets. And again, these rockets don't aim. They just get fired and land wherever they land. But you can see they're significantly slower than the missiles. And that's what the Iron Dome was actually built for, was these rockets and mortars. The fact that they can take out some ballistics is actually not what they were designed for, but still pretty impressive.
And if he was, he wouldn't tell the reporter. So he's being deliberately vague. But what I can tell you from covering this president, from covering previous conflicts, is look at the movements. Those usually signal what is about to happen. And that is consistent with the reporting that the U.S. is signaling that they are planning to send in ground troops. The question becomes when.
Back to Ali Hashem in the Iranian capital, Tehran. Ali, I just wanted to give you a chance to add any reporting that you might have been able to gather on these two things that we're hearing out of the White House. One of them, Donald Trump, declaring that he's theoretically at least willing to speak to Iranian leadership in one way, shape, or form, but there just isn't leadership to speak to. That's one. And the second thing, you heard Kimberly there, there are reports the U.S. president is considering a ground component to his war against Iran. Any reporting that you want to add on either one of these 2 points?
Well, on both. First of all, with respect to President Trump saying that he wants to speak to an Iranian leadership, but he doesn't know who to speak with. Actually, it's a question I asked Arakchi, the foreign minister, a couple of days ago. Specifically, and he said, well, this country has a president, has a supreme leader, has a foreign ministry, and they're all available. So given the fact that they have these people in place, it's maybe easy, and especially with mediators that are, or channels that are in place also, it could be easy to send messages to them, probably. This is, I think, what Arakchi told us a couple of days ago. Now, with respect to boots on ground, it was clear from several Iranian officials issuing statements today, and we heard from the foreign minister, we heard from the leader, we heard from the Speaker of the Parliament, Kalibaf. They've all said clearly that in a case of such a situation, of invasion, of any kind of a violation of Iranian sovereignty, boots on ground soldiers there. Iran is going to fight. Iran is going to fight. Iran is going to confront such an attempt. And of course, this is going to take things into another dimension already, regardless of what the officials are saying. But in fact, this is going to take the whole situation to a new dimension, because Iran's armed forces also, they count hundreds of thousands. And given the fact they are used to asymmetrical warfare, this is going to create a quagmire for the United States here in Iran.
Ali Hashem reporting from Tehran. Thank you very much. Thanking also Kimberly Halkett from the White House. Thanks to both of you and to our teams on the ground. Joining us now, Negar Mortazavi, Senior Non-Resident Fellow at the Center for International Policy, and Ross Harrison, Senior Fellow at the Middle East Institute in Washington, D.C., author of Decoding Iran's Foreign Policy. A warm welcome to both of you. We had a great conversation yesterday. We wanted to get you guys back together.
Great to be back.
Negotiations, you heard our teams talking about that. Donald Trump saying, well, maybe I could speak to the Iranian leadership, but there's nobody to speak to because we keep killing them. I'm not even pointing to just the logical flaw there. I'm just pointing to the fact that Donald Trump has opened the door, at least rhetorically, right, to negotiations. And our correspondent in Tehran is saying, well, there are people he can speak to. There's the president, there's the foreign minister, there are other members of the establishment, depending on how, this could be set up. I'm just wondering your thoughts on the possibility for negotiations, whether direct, indirect, in any way between the U.S. and Iran.
I mean, I think it's possible if the president also didn't ruin every opportunity. I honestly think Donald Trump is interested. He was interested from the first term in a deal with Iran. He had a problem with the JCPOA because that was a President Obama deal, and he pulled out of that deal. The reason we're here, this war really started in 2018 when he pulled out of the JCPOA, a deal that was working back then, preventing Iran from becoming a nuclear weapon state. The assassination of the top General Soleimani, 2020, last year, negotiate in the middle of negotiations, Operation Midnight Hammer, and then this year again, negotiations. I think he was genuinely interested in a deal and then attacking in the middle of negotiations. The kind of deal he's interested is the problem. He wants total surrender. He wants capitulation, as he has said, a special envoy Witkoff has said. And the Iranians are not willing to offer that. They offered a pretty good deal, as we hear from the Omani mediators, and now we heard from a top UK official who was present in that process saying this could have been resolved diplomatically. But
well, it's not a pretty good deal according to Donald Trump.
Because it's just short of surrender. Yeah. It's just short of total capitulation, which the Iranians are not going to do. They're fighting tooth and nail just to not surrender. They're not going to surrender in this war. They're not going to capitulate. And they're not going to do it on the diplomatic table. So I think it's a mismatch in style and maybe even culture and understanding of the other side. And that's why the president keeps getting dragged into what comes from bad decisions, little planning, and no strategy for moving forward.
But Donald Trump seems to believe, based on his statements, whether it's Truth Social or the various public statements that he's made, he seems to believe that if he pounds Iran enough, then they will capitulate. Ross, do you think, again, you wrote that book, Decoding Iran's Foreign Policy, do you think that's possible?
No. I mean, anything is possible, Cyril, but I think, remember, going back to build on Nagar's comment about the conflict starting in 2018 when Donald Trump walked away from the nuclear deal, the theory of change there was that if you impose maximum pressure sanctions, eventually the regime will capitulate because people will rise up. People were hurt, but they didn't rise up, and the regime strengthened and actually reinforced the position of the hardliners. So I think that theory of change has been disproven all along. But I think it's also important to realize that negotiations are just part of the tip of the iceberg in terms of a bargaining. And that is that we're dealing with fighting on the ground, and that's part of the bargaining process. Yet. I'm sorry. What I mean by, I'm sorry, you're correct. I'll stand corrected. We're dealing with fighting, right? And when in the middle of battle, that is part of the bargaining process. And I think what the Iranians are very clear about is that they have to leave this battle with some kind of escalation dominance, number one, and having recreated and re-engineered deterrence. And that we don't see. So will there be opportunities for off-ramps and for negotiations? Yes. But the other thing I think is very, very important is that if nature had taken its course and Ali Khamenei had died, there had been no war.
Oh, if he had not been assassinated.
If he had not, if he had not been assassinated, he had just died and taken nature taking its course.
He was 86, I believe.
Right. There would have been some kind of a power dynamic, right? And probably he and Moshe probably would not have been the new supreme leader. What this has done is almost like steel. You heat it and you forge it. This has forged a process so that in a way they've avoided the succession problem. In a way, there would have been some kind of struggle for power if he had died natural course. This war has kind of almost like annealed the process, and I think in some ways there are people to talk to. I think the question becomes, is there enough of a security environment for them to come out and be able to negotiate?
Yeah. This is a little bit what the Supreme Leader was saying, that actually the U.S.-Israeli war in Iran has strengthened the nation. Ross was talking about escalation dominance. Nigar, do you think that Donald Trump can regain the upper hand? He would argue he has the upper hand right now. Can he gain more of an upper hand if he puts boots on the ground, as he is reportedly thinking of doing?
I don't think so, unless he wants to turn this into the next endless Middle East war, much worse than Iraq, much worse than Afghanistan. This is one of the largest countries in the region, one of the most populated. We're dealing with a nation state of 90-something million people.
Well, what about a limited version of boots on the ground? For instance, one of the scenarios that's been considered is take Harg Island, which is Iran's main export hub for oil. Take it, and then request that Iran, for instance, open the Strait of Hormuz.
Well, the U.S. has military supremacy in Israel, too. But we shouldn't forget, this is the Iranians, this is their homeland. This is their neighborhood. The reason the Strait of Hormuz is closed is because they have strategic geographic, access to that. Harg Island, you bring troops. The flip side is you're in Iran's reach. I mean, the Iranians, part of the system, is going to welcome that. The reason U.S. casualties are seen as low from their side is because they can't reach them, because the U.S. forces are so far away. That's why they're going. Part of the reason they're going for their neighbors. That's why part of the reason they're only reaching Israel. So put boots on the ground somewhere near their neighborhood, near their homeland. That's some in Iran are going to welcome that as part of the military strategy and just see it as new targets to inflict more pain on the U.S. side. What they want to inflict as far as pain on the U.S. is casualties and also the oil price. They like to drive up the oil price in the global market, eventually in the U.S., because that's what's going to be felt at the pump by the American public and eventually put pressure on the White House. So, there's a flip side to that. I don't know how the president is going to pull that off, if this is being thought of, because now we're hearing that he didn't think they would close the Strait of Hormuz. He didn't believe them when they said they're going to attack their neighbors. All of these things happen. So I don't know if this one is being thought out.
Ross, real quick, if you wouldn't mind, do you see a scenario where boots on the ground helps U.S. interests, or at least U.S. interests as they are perceived by Donald Trump?
No, I don't think so, Cyril, because I think the Iranians would be ready for them. Remember, that's to build on Nagar's comments, they would have a home team advantage. And I think it would require, if the goal, depending on what the goal is, if the goal is regime change, they'd have to march on Tehran. That's not going to happen. They would be, I just don't see that as a possibility. Could they have a limited operation? Possibly. But the problem will be the staying power. To Nagar's point, I mean, the Iranians do have capacity. First of all, they've got swarming capabilities, some of them taken out perhaps, but they've got the ability to deal in an asymmetric way with a kinetic military action. And plus, the U.S. Navy has contracted a bit. And my understanding is that many of the minesweeping boats have been scrapped in Philadelphia and cashed in for cash. I believe that's one of the reasons why Donald Trump has been trying to get the Europeans to come in. So I think that's very, very tricky. And
I was trying to get some information about how many troops, because I saw some of you guys talking about that. So it says, as of March 2026, the U.S. maintains a significant military presence. Some are saying 40 or 50,000 total. Includes personnel that are stationed at bases in Kuwait, Qatar, Bahrain, and others in Iraq, Syria, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, UAE, and beyond. The Marine Expeditionary Force, which is the thing everyone's talking about, looks like it's about 2,500 Marines, potentially up to 5,000 people supporting as well. So when they say they're sending in 2,500 Marines, that's misleading. You know what I mean? Like, they're not just sending in 2,500 people. They're sending in like 10,000, and the 2,500 is just the Marines that are supposedly to be the first ones that are going to go in or something similar. And then we have Let's see. More Marines from Japan, apparently, 2,200. So about 50,000 total, they're saying. As far as Marines go, we've talked about that. Navy, obviously you have the USS Abraham Lincoln, the Gerald Ford, destroyers, cruisers, amphibious ships. So that's all that personnel. The Air Force, you have all the bombers, F-22s, F-35s in support for that. And then for the Army, you have mostly at the bases, also doing air defense for Patriot and THAAD systems. So the overall mix looks like it's that 40, 50,000 number, which the Marine Expeditionary is probably another 7 to 10,000. So, you know, when you see stuff like this, just be sure that you're realizing when they say it's like 2,000 people going, it's 2,000 people that are the infantry technically going in, but you have everyone that supports them going in too, which is thousands more.
Those conflicts lasted years. People want a quick end to this. They want a de-escalation, they want negotiations, and they want this wave of violence to end as soon as possible.
I'm Malik Trainer reporting from Kuwait City. Thank you very much. And staying in the region, authorities in Dubai have closed a number of Iranian-linked institutions. The UAE government says that the move targets facilities tied to Iran's leadership and the Revolutionary Guard, alleging that they were used for activities in breach of local laws. Among those affected is the Iranian hospital, known for providing affordable care, but also previously linked to alleged intelligence activity. Since the conflict began, Iran has been targeting oil and gas facilities across the Gulf. We discussed it with Malik in Kuwait. That has triggered a sharp rise in oil and gas prices worldwide, threatening a prolonged impact on energy markets. Julita Ager takes a look back at some of those attacks.
Just days into the war, Iran began targeting energy facilities across the Gulf, among them oil refineries in Saudi Arabia and Kuwait, ports in Oman and the United Arab Emirates, and in Qatar, the world's biggest LNG production facility. Then the attacks expanded. Iran hit the Fujairah oil industrial zone in the UAE, the largest storage for refined energy products in the Middle East. The city is on the east coast, so vessels don't need to pass through the Strait of Hormuz, which Iran has effectively closed. On March the 11th, Iranian drones struck fuel storage tanks in Oman, despite the fact that the country was mediating nuclear talks between the US and Iran before the war began. But Iran's own facilities are also under attack. Israeli airstrikes targeted 4 oil storage depots in and around the capital. Plumes of thick black smoke prompted health warnings. Iran has kept up its assault on regional energy facilities, targeting them more than once. This was the aftermath of another drone attack on Fujairah in the UAE. On March the 18th, a significant escalation. Israel bombed the South Pass gas field, the largest in the world, which is shared by Qatar and Iran. Around 85% of Iran's electricity comes from natural gas. Iran responded by attacking key energy infrastructure in the region. Attacks hit Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, and Qatar, and the UAE. Here in Qatar, a missile struck the Ras Laffan gas refinery, causing significant damage. The government says it could take up to 5 years to repair. But Iran also hit a major oil refinery in Israel's northern city of Haifa. Israeli authorities confirmed the damage but said it wasn't significant. The latest strikes have added to an already sharp increase in oil and natural gas prices worldwide, and fears are growing of a full-blown global energy crisis.
The head of the International Energy Agency is warning that it could take up to 6 months to restore oil and gas flows from the Gulf. Fatih Birol told the Financial Times the world is facing what could be the most severe energy crisis in history. The IEA is calling for urgent action. The agency says that transport is a key pressure point. It accounts for around 45% of global oil use. The IEA is calling for more remote working and greater use of public transport. It also recommends more car sharing to reduce fuel consumption, and it urges people to take fewer flights. Al Jazeera's Kristen Salumi is live from New York. Kristen, you're monitoring the markets there for 3 weeks. It's been the same question. How are the markets responding to the rising oil prices, to this choke point in the Strait of Hormuz, which is really discombobulating energy markets worldwide? What are you seeing?
Yeah, the trend has been consistent. As oil prices rise, the markets have gone lower, and we're now seeing approaching the fourth losing week in a row for the major stock indexes on Wall Street, including the Dow Jones Industrial Average and the S&P 500. That as Brent crude is approaching $110 a barrel, again up 50% from where it was before the conflict started. The U.S. gauge, the West Texas crude oil, down this week slightly, but still up 40% from where it was before the conflict started. And all of that is worrying investors. They're showing concern about the long-term implications of this. We've seen treasuries yields surging. And
if any of you in chat know where to see, I'm looking right now, but if you already know where to see the like USGS like waveforms from the earthquake, the seismogram or whatever it's called, can you point me in the right direction? I'm trying to see if I can find the one from the two that are in Iran right now.
again, in negative territory.
Yeah, Kristen Salumi, what is the impact on the American consumer 3 weeks into this war?
Well, we just had a new poll out today from Reuters Ipsos, and it finds that 55% of Americans say that they're feeling the pinch of rising fuel prices, at least somewhat, and 22% say that fuel prices are affecting their finances a great deal. We know that diesel prices are up even more than the regular fuel that's used in automobiles, diesel that's required for trains and industrial endeavors, that's up higher as well. And that's putting pressure on consumers and businesses that are already struggling with tariffs and other inflationary pressures in the United States. And that same poll, Cyril, finds that 63% of Americans now disapprove of President Trump's handling of economic issues, and that's up considerably from when he first took office, and it was 41%.
Kristen Salumi reporting from Wall Street. Thank you very much. All right, do stay with us. There's more on the fallout of the escalating war between the U.S., Israel, and Iran.
Cue the music. Oh, things are getting interesting. I'm pulling up some news right here. Give me just a second. Interesting. All right, I'm just going to pull up a couple and do them all at once. All right, so let's start with, we've talked about troops that are being deployed, and we've talked about these supposedly just a few deaths that there have been. But it looks like 232 soldiers have been injured. I'm sure it's higher than that. 232 U.S. soldiers since this conflict began. Am I hearing someone talking? Not one of the cameras. Politico says Russia offered to halt intelligence sharing with Iran if the U.S. stopped providing Ukraine with intelligence on Russia. Washington rejected the offer. So that's really interesting. So Russia, by trying to make this deal, obviously Russia admitted that they are sharing intelligence information with Iran for targeting and stuff like that, which at one point they denied. But then also separate from that, the U.S. turned down their deal. Russia is sharing with Iran, and the U.S. is sharing with Ukraine. Russia said, if you stop sharing with Ukraine, we'll stop sharing with Iran. And Washington said no. So, interesting. And Iranian president said they believe that assassinating the leadership would lead to the country's disintegration. But the Assembly of Experts wisely chose a new leader. So who's the new leader? Because everyone thought it was Mojtaba Khomeini. Obviously, we heard he was injured or died. So who's the actual new real leader? And then this is that fire from before at Albit Systems for Israel, and it's just showing more damage and stuff that happened at the building. But you can see, you know, it's anything that attacks the ability to make missiles or drones or munitions for war is a major hit. And then we have the Israel Air Force posting to the Iranians, saying days will fill with light, hope, and security. Happy Nowruz. So Israel is still basically giving the message that they're freeing the Iranian people from their leadership. Very interesting. And then there's an attack between March 5th and 6th. Shrapnel from an explosion caused damage to Italian Eurofighters that were at the base. So this is the first damage I'm hearing of anything European, right? Because we know that France sent the aircraft carrier, and apparently there were some Italian Eurofighters there as well. So still, again, things are expanding. Georgia becomes the first U.S. state to suspend fuel taxes as the Middle East war drives up prices. This came out earlier, but, you know, it's a Trump post. He says, without the USA, NATO is a paper tiger. I wish I could do like an impression or something. I was trying to try and find the accent, but I can't find it. They didn't want to join the fight to stop a nuclear-powered Iran. Now that fight is militarily won, with very little danger for them. They complain about the high oil prices they are forced to pay, but don't want to help open the Strait of Hormuz, a simple military maneuver that is the single reason for the high oil prices. So easy for them to do with so little risk. Cowards. And we will remember President Donald J. Trump. So he's directly calling out NATO, like he always does. If you remember, he even at the NATO meeting, at the actual conference, he was talking crap to them and called them out and everything too, directly to their faces. But I mean, what do you guys think about that? Do you think that NATO is failing? Because I mean, you look at NATO and all that stuff lately, and it seems to me like every time something happens with like Ukraine or anyone else, the U.S. going into this war, Israel, no matter what happens across NATO, they don't seem to have each other's back. That seems to be a commonality. So maybe NATO, like Russia was saying years ago, maybe NATO's nothing. Maybe it's just a front, right? This is footage of old city of Jerusalem actually getting hit. Remember we saw that cluster munition that came in? So you can see that was a kinetic hit. There was no explosion. But still very powerful. A lot of damage. Can still obviously kill people, cause property damage. There are more Southcom strikes that are happening on these narco-terrorism boats. Remember, this was going on for a while, and people were all over Hague Seth and all that stuff because they're saying it was illegal or like war crimes or something. Apparently that's still going on as of yesterday. So I think we're on multiple fronts, fighting multiple wars, and we're only privy to whatever ones they put out in front of our face. This is IDF strikes and what they targeted. They basically went after their ability to make ballistic missiles and drones, weapons production facility, ballistic missile components, ballistic missile launchers facility. So they're not just attacking the launchers and stuff themselves, they're attacking their ability to make them or use them, which is very smart. And this is what I was talking about before. This is Israeli ambassador to Russia, Oded Yosef. He met with Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Borisenko and noted that prior warning was given to the IDF activity in the area where that RT news person was struck that we saw earlier. So we saw the guy, actually I'll pull it up because I think some people haven't seen that. Let me see if it actually can find it here on X. Let's see. I think it's this one here. So for anyone that hasn't seen this yet, to make sure the volume is down-ish. So this is RT. This is Russian television news, and they're reporting there, and they get hit. Well, I don't know if they get hit directly, but it's within feet behind them, and that's what Russia is calling out Israel on.
along the border, including the Al-Marj
This is
outpost
insane.
opposite Merkabah, and carried out drone strikes on the Al-Raheb site near Aitar al-Shab. Further rocket attacks were reported against Nahariya and a minute.
So you're talking about a strike within 20 feet, right? But this whole thing goes back to, you know, the IDF is saying that they warned that area, they warned that bridge before they struck there. So the question is Israel in the wrong for hitting that area while RT was there? Or was RT wrong for being there and not evacuating the area that Israel said they were going to hit? So that's one of those situations. And Moscow has called Israeli ambassador there to discuss the situation. So we'll see what happens with that. And then Iranian officials have become reluctant to even discuss reopening the strait because they're focusing on surviving the U.S.-Israeli onslaught. So they're too busy with all the attacks going on to do anything about the Strait of Hormuz, to either close it or open it or, you know, regulate it. So they're overwhelmed at the moment. And let me go back to...
If the U.S. hits them and Iran cannot hit on the U.S., the justification of hitting the Gulf states and energy infrastructure of the Gulf states when the Gulf states have not done anything, it is hosting for sure, but that is not enough to justify the response and the ferocity and the confusion that Iran has done. By the same logic, the U.S. could continue forever pounding on Iran without any concern for life, civilian or otherwise. And that in itself is quite problematic.
I want to bring in Jim here. Jim, you're a research associate in MIT's Security Studies program. How much security is this bringing to the Gulf? It's not, right?
No. Obviously, initiating a war of choice, not a war of necessity, is going to be disruptive. And what's more, when you take a regular war and you turn it into a fight for survival, which is what the U.S. has done by declaring its goal as regime change and then unconditional surrender, what Iran hears from those terms is this is a fight for survival. So I don't think anyone should be surprised that they're hitting other states in the region. Many of these states hold U.S. bases. Like, that would be justification enough in some circumstances. But it also has to be said out loud that some of the states in the region lobbied for this war. The Washington Post has reported that the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia was advocating on the phone to Trump to initiate the war. And then after the war started, was on the phone advocating that he finish it or complete it, whatever that means. So it's not surprising that Iran doesn't want to get into...
I'm looking for those seismograms for those earthquakes that are down by Iran.
U.S. doesn't come back in 6 months and we do this all over again like we did 6 months earlier. So it's really who can take more pain here? Can the U.S. take the political pain, economic pain, or will Iran run out of drones and missiles first, or reach a threshold where their pain is too great? And that's why we're in uncertainty. We're in a dangerous period of uncertainty where this could definitely escalate if either side chooses to move in that direction.
Sorry, Jim, I'm just going to interrupt you there. I want to bring your point to Mohsen in Tehran. Mohsen, it's a very interesting point, right? What is the pain threshold here for Iran? How much pounding of their capital cities can they take, destruction of oil facilities, etc., before they have to go to the negotiating table?
The negotiating table, we don't see here in Tehran any sign of the other side to be interested in diplomacy or negotiation, because a negotiation table was in reach and they were sitting around it. But in the middle of negotiations, this attack was initiated. Therefore, Iran is a large country. I mean, that can merge the whole economy of the world in this conflict. I mean, I don't see an end to it. That act cannot result in a good thing. Then continuing pounding.
So this is the closest station that measured. This is in Hong Kong to measure this, to measure the earthquake in Iran. I'm looking all over the place and I can't find any that actually recorded and reported on it. But yeah, I mean, this is unreadable. I mean, obviously it's showing the activity, but I don't know if we can tell like what's the actual earthquake or what. So I think this is just recording during that time period. So kind of useless, to be honest. But you would think there would be an actual waveform from that from hours ago by USGS or someone else, and I can't find anything. Kind of interesting.
There because
and again they attacked Iran.
Well, that's the exact point, right, Jim? Yes, there were negotiations taking place. They were taking place on the eve of the war. Now, but we talk about, appetite for destruction here, as it were. One of the key things Iran is doing is forcing global energy prices to spike. At some point, if it does, I mean, oil is already at what, 116, that kind of level. If it gets to $150 to $200, then America has to stop. And that is a new way of warfare, right? Economic warfare.
Well, I mean, we did see that partly during the oil embargo of 1973, when oil was used as a weapon in the wake of war in the Middle East. And we saw it again during the Iran-Iraq war when we had the so-called tanker war, but to more limited effect. And this is really the biggest use of oil and shutting down oil supply that we've seen in history, even larger than those previous examples. I think it's a function of two things. It's going to be a function of duration. How long does it go on? Like, let's just assume it's going on at this level, which is pretty intense for Iran, by the way, but it goes on at this level for how long? And the longer it goes on, obviously, the more intense the damage and lasting the damage. But there is a second variable here, not just duration, but intensity. And all wars have the capacity to escalate and expand, particularly wars that involve a fight for survival. I can't underline that enough. States will go to the edge in order to survive. And if you just look at Ukraine, Russia, we see, enormous destruction of the economic infrastructure there, attacking nuclear power plants, the grid, all sorts of things. So this is, this happens in wars. So if this war intensifies, you will see the nature of the destruction intensify. And then when you get into not simply shipping, but production facilities, then the impacts will linger. Oil's pretty good at sort of recovering from this or that. It's liquid, if you will. But if you go after production, that's a different thing. So I worry about this escalating because we're in a fight where one party sees it as a fight for survival.
Mohsen, that's a very good point. And it's been said that Iran is a regime, a governance system that can survive everything, all but a complete occupation. Do you think Iranians still feel that way? The Iranian establishment still feels that way?
I think we have to take the lesson from the past experience as well. I mean, first of all, the destruction which is happening is exactly what Israel wants. I mean, that inflicting destruction on a country is not a strategy. Is just an act of violence and destruction. I mean, then even if a government is completely destroyed, then you have to face a nation and a country. I mean, the experience in the past situation like Iraq, Afghanistan, and other countries as well, you cannot destruct the facilities, even the government, and then overwhelm a country, then you face the nation, and that would drag you in an endless war, civil war, and also war of people against you. Therefore, this is not a strategy. This is just inflicting destruction as much as possible to the region, and that's what Netanyahu and Israel want. And even if I don't think Americans also want that, but they are dragged into war to make destruction to the region as much.
PJ, thanks for the super chat. He says, "Thank you," or she. Sorry, I don't know if you're a man or a woman. Mint Freeman, thanks for becoming a new member. Mint Girl Freeman. Angel Brooks, did Netanyahu's plane leave Germany? If so, when? Thank you, Matt, for your channels. So everything that I've seen, there was no proof that he ever went there, and a lot of people said it might have been like a decoy. So he'll have decoy people and decoy planes and stuff like that, just like all other world leaders. So it could have been something that made it seem like he left and he stayed there, or he could have gone anywhere else in the world at the same time on a different plane. So we don't really actually know that, unfortunately. Yeah, let's not harass boomers. I've seen a lot of boomer talk going on. That's derogatory, just so you know. Let's see. Yeah, I don't see anything else about these earthquakes. I can't seem to find anything. Looks like we have 156% spike at Pizzato Pizza, but the other ones are extra quiet. So I'm not sure. That one, I wouldn't take just one being spiked, but if you get 2 or 3, then that's something just to watch. Yeah, they're calling this a armed conflict and not a war. So we'll see. Angel says she's a boomer and she's against the war. Sarah Bryan, appreciate the super chat. Thank you, Matt. And if you guys, if you don't get a chance, if you haven't had a chance yet, if you go over to X, Trigger Smart HQ, you can tag me over there. You can message me as well. And you can send tips and emails and things to engcwarrior@gmail.com. And that's for anything. That could be for war, Charlie Kirk. Other interesting stories. I've had people send me stuff about Canada and the healthcare system over there. I was thinking about doing a possible report on that as well. Make sure you guys hit that like. If you haven't already subscribed, consider it. And also, I have another channel called Off Script Radio, and it's basically an OSINT dashboard. I'll share that over here really quick. And we like to do 24/7 monitoring over there. I actually was considering using that monitoring over there as my secondary stream during this one, because it also has the EAMs and stuff in it. But this is kind of some of what happens. So it goes through the different dashboards. It has the cams here. It has news that scrolls across the top and has all the updates, rocket alerts, Israeli map for where the warnings and alerts are, U.S. military planes, and it just cycles through a bunch of different layers of intel and cams. And anytime there is an alert, then it goes to this screen that shows most of Israel from different angles. And during those alerts, it'll come here. And when those alerts finish, then it'll go back into the dashboard cycle. So it's just kind of a cool little setup. I'll probably set up something similar for Russia and Ukraine here shortly as well. That will also be 24/7 on the same channel. But I restart it once a day. And then I come in once in a while during the day, make sure the cams are still up and everything, and then update the news. So something to consider as well. Off Script Radio. All right. Is there anything else? McDonald's graph. That's funny. I think people talking about Fox News, I think they've shifted. I know at one point they were super hardcore right. Now they seem like they're either in the middle or even starting to lean left. I don't think they're what they used to be. Different leadership, different mentality. I think at one point everyone just got paid to do what they're told. And I don't think it matters what you were before that happened. Paid or threatened, one of the two. All right, we'll go back here.
Strategy, just continually degrade the capability of everyone in the region.
Now, there is a twist in the tale here. I just want to read out some words from Scott Bessent, who is the Energy Secretary of the US. He said this: in the coming days, we may unsanction the Iranian oil that's on the water. It's about 140 million barrels. Mohsen, to your point, the energy infrastructure war, does these words show you that the Americans are now so desperate that they are willing to put money not effectively in Iran's pocket because of the other sanctions, but this is a twist that we didn't see coming. Your strategy of global economic chaos, do you think that is, Scott Bessent's words are, proof that that's working?
He says that or not, that amount of oil is out of region and is reaching to its destination. That's just, first of all, a kind of rhetoric. But let me...
It looks like Russia, the envoy Kirill Dmitriev, has denied that Russia offered a deal to the U.S. regarding Iran and intel. So the report that we had earlier saying that the U.S. offered to, Russia said they would stop giving intel to Iran, which first of all says that they are giving intel to Iran. They offered to quit doing that if the U.S. will quit giving intel to Ukraine. And the U.S. turned it down, was a report that we saw. Now there's something coming out from Kirill Dmitriev himself directly saying that Russia did not offer that deal, calling it fake. So that's interesting. And then we have the United Kingdom has authorized American forces to launch attacks from Raf Fairford and Diego Garcia against Iranian missile facilities striking vessels in the Strait of Hormuz, invoking collective self-defense. So that's huge to be able to use those locations to launch from. So I think we're going to see some attacks pick up for sure. And that seems to be the big story right now, is that they greenlit using those facilities. Over about a week, Barksdale Air Force in Louisiana has repeatedly overflown by groups of unauthorized drones, not just a single incident, but coordinated waves of roughly a dozen or more at a time. These drones weren't typically hobby models. They showed signs of long-range control, resistance to jamming, and deliberate, organized movement patterns, including spreading across sensitive parts of the bases where B-52 bombers are stationed. I also saw something, too, that said that Pete Hegseth and some of the other cabinet have had drones fly over their residences, and obviously Mar-a-Lago, too, I think, as well, or that area. They've been flown over by these drones as well. I don't know if it's the exact same drones, but drones in general. So where are these coming from? Because you remember we had the drones in New Jersey and that whole thing that happened. And people were saying that we're being invaded and they thought it was aliens and everything. And it turned out to be drones. But was it our drones? And at one point, I think it went all across the U.S. I kind of look into that stuff from time to time. I was going to do a live stream here coming up shortly talking about all of the UAPs and the declassified UFO information that the government put out that a lot of people don't even know about. They're not even aware that they put it out in the first place. And there's interviews from people that have worked on the stuff, seen the bodies, worked on the UAPs, people that were, what was he? I think it was a medical examiner or a mortician or something. And he got contacted by a base asking if like if he knew how to handle the bodies, like these like alien bodies, to keep them preserved and stuff like that. So very interesting stuff. Let's see. Yeah, drones coming out of the ocean. Yeah, I mean, and at one point, I think one of the senators or congressmen specifically mentioned that Iran had a mothership that had these drones coming off of it, and it turned out that was true. So, and that's something that we supposedly have hit during this war so far. So I find it interesting, it's always interesting when conspiracies come true, right? And it looks, I'm very surprised, to be honest, that there aren't like nonstop attacks right now. That was happening earlier during the daytime for them in the Middle East. And part of it was probably because of the religious holiday. The other part was in retaliation for Iranian leadership being killed. And we just saw like the biggest missile volley of the entire war come from Iran. And now it's dead quiet. I haven't seen a single alert or anything for drones or missiles or anything yet. Probably for like the last hour and 30 minutes. And someone's asking about the cams. Yes, on the lower right cams, we'll switch to those. On these cams, you'll see rain. There's been a lot of storms. And at one point, it was super heavy. And I think I just saw lightning. Was that a lightning flash? Hold on, what was that? I think it's lightning. Let me see if my little replay thing is working. A good time to test it out. But yeah, the stuff you're seeing is mostly just raindrops going past the camera. And the cameras are really wide, so it stretches them out. All right, let me see if I can pull this replay up and see if that works. I added a replay functionality, so if there's like a strike or something, we can see it and we can record it. So I just want to see if what I just saw a second ago was a lightning strike. I assume it was. Probably looks similar to an interception. All right, so now this should switch over. This is a replay from earlier. Is this going to switch? Okay, so we switched there. So at some point in one of the cams, I think it was one of these two here, it was either 3 or 5, there's lightning. I think it was lightning. There it was, 3 and 7. Yeah, it's lightning. So it's just lightning from the storm. But see, it's kind of cool. I can go back and play anything that's happened in the stream and replay it. So 3 and 7 get hit. I think 5 at 1.2 with the lightning. So kind of interesting.
To try and recover as many survivors and bodies.
From around the world.
Bangladesh's new government may soon be facing.
They have their music playing again. Do we want to stay on Al Jazeera or do we want to go to Fox Live now? They seem to be the only major two. Let me see if anyone else is live. It's always interesting trying to find anything on the war coverage. Most people are trying to, seems like most people are trying to avoid it altogether. Let's see. There's so much AI stuff, so much like AI crap and slop all over YouTube. Probably 90% of what I'm seeing is AI. And YouTube is also, they got rid of like the top 12 AI accounts. And they have like 6 million subscribers. And we're making millions of dollars per year. Basically taking other people's information and rewriting it with AI and then using AI to generate videos and then mass producing that on like 10, 20 different YouTube channels. Yeah, I don't see anyone else live right now except for Fox and Tel Aviv. Should we check out Fox Live now? I can't do a survey or a poll because they're blocking, for some reason, YouTube's not letting me do that. Can you put a 1 in chat? If you want to stay on Al Jazeera, put a 2 in chat. If you want to go to Fox Live now. Looks like almost exactly 50-50. Maybe a little bit more towards Al Jazeera. Yeah, looks like we're still leaning towards Al Jazeera. I'm just waiting for the music to stop.
His country, a gross miscalculation. In a statement, Mojtaba Khamenei said that the enemy tried to create fear and despair among the public. He thanked Iranians for showing opposition to what he called global arrogance during recent violent protests. And he said the targeted killings of several leaders, including his father, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, created incredible unity among the population. Funerals have been held for 2 of the high-profile Iranian figures assassinated this week. Ismail Ahmadi was the intelligence chief of the Basij, the internal security force, while Ismail Khatib was the intelligence minister. In Kuwait, Iranian missiles targeted an oil refinery in Al Amadi port for a second day. It's one of the latest retaliatory attacks on a Gulf energy facility after Israel bombed an Iranian gas field on Wednesday. The head of the International Energy Agency is warning that it could take up to 6 months to restore oil and gas flows from the Gulf. Fatih Birol told the Financial Times that the world is facing what could be the most severe energy crisis in history.
Did you hear what they said? They said it could take up to 6 months to restore energy flows from the damage that's been done just so far.
Trump says that his administration is struggling to find leaders in Iran to hold talks with, because many top officials have been killed. He made the comments at the White House where he gave an upbeat assessment of the U.S. military's progress. He said that former U.S. presidents should have taken similar action against Tehran. We are live this hour in Kuwait City, the White House in Washington and in Tehran. Let's begin with Al Jazeera's Ali Hashim, who's in the Iranian capital. So, Ali, Iran's supreme leader, Mojtaba Khamenei, addressed the nation today. Tell us more about what he said.
Well, Mojtaba Khamenei's second major statement since he was elected as a new supreme leader for Iran was at the occasion of the Iranian New Year, the Nowruz. And given the occasion, it was mainly internal, highlighted the periods that Iran went through in the past year, from the war in June 2025 to the internal strife January 2026, and now the current war. It was clear that he, through this message, wanted to maintain a kind of an internal unity. He was concentrating more on the internal front, because to him the internal front is much more important when he's facing an external war. So we saw a lot of messaging when it came to the inside, trying to highlight the importance of unity, the importance of not listening to foreign media, not listening to foreign signaling and propaganda and messaging. However, there were some parts of the message where he messaged the region. He spoke to his neighbors in Pakistan and Afghanistan, calling on them to unite, not to fight, and that he is ready to play a role in that. And also, with respect to the current war, saying that his country and the armed forces did not attack Turkey and Oman, and that the Israelis are trying to create rifts between Iran and its neighbors. However, it was clear that he sees a challenge, he sees a gap between Iran and its neighbors. So there were a lot of parts of this message where he was kind of messaging, signaling positively to the neighbors, but mainly the letter was about standing still, about resilience, about defiance, and how Iran can pass through this very sensitive interval.
Ali, I'll be back with you in just a moment. Let's bring in our White House correspondent, Kimberly Halkett. Kimberly, President Trump says there's no one in Iran for him to talk to. Surely that's a direct consequence of the strategy that the US and Israel are pursuing right now.
Yeah, that's right. The U.S. president early on in this conflict had said that the United States is talking with Iran, but they aren't ready to make a deal to end the war. Now what we're hearing is that there's no one to talk to because no partner or counterpart exists. Why is the U.S. president saying this? Well, he's really signaling two things. Number one, he is making the justification to the American public and the world for continued military action because there is no one else to negotiate with. But he's also framing the war as being successful, at least in his mind, because the leadership structure in Iran is gone. Take a listen to what the U.S. president had to say.
They don't know what's happening. Their Navy's gone, their Air Force is gone, their anti-aircraft is all gone, it's all gone, their radar is all gone, their leaders are all gone, the next set of leaders are all gone, and the next set of leaders are mostly gone. And now nobody wants to be a leader over there anymore. We're having a hard time. We want to talk to them, and there's nobody to talk to. We have nobody to talk to. And you know what? We like it that way.
Kimberly, there are reports that the president is thinking about sending more soldiers to the Middle East. What do we make of that?
Yeah, well, what we make of it is that the U.S. president is telegraphing that possibility. What he has said in previous interviews is that he's not going to put any troops on the ground, but if he was going to, he wouldn't telegraph that in advance. Now, what we have to do then is take a look at the military movements that are occurring right now, and that is giving us the clearest signal yet that there is, in fact, some sort of ground troop deployment that is planned. Number one, we have 3 ships and expeditionary unit of about 2,500 Marines headed to the region. That's in addition to 2,200 Marines that are on an amphibious assault ship also heading to the region. It's the USS Tripoli. Now, in addition to the USS Tripoli, we also know that there are A-10 Warthog jets as well as Apache attack helicopters also being deployed. What does this say in this entirety? Well, there's only one reason that those jets and those helicopters would be deployed, and that is to support ground troops in close air support. So the bottom line in all of this is that the U.S. president is being vague, but what we do know is that the goal is to secure the strait. That is what these Marines would likely be doing. But if boots on the ground are deployed, Adrian, this is a major shift in the war and signals a new phase, one that is likely to be very unpopular with the American public.
Our White House correspondent Kimberly Halkett reporting live from Washington. Iran's president said that his Persian New Year address that Tehran doesn't seek war with its neighbors. Masoud Pezeshkian is blaming Iran's enemies for regional tension.
We propose that to establish peace and stability in the region, a regional security structure be formed from Islamic countries, ensuring peace, security and stability. We do not need the presence of outsiders in the region. We can establish an Islamic Assembly of the Middle East among the Islamic countries of the region, and within this assembly develop security, economic and cultural relations with one another. We must not fight each other or fall into the trap that has been laid for us.
Back to Ali Hashem in Tehran. What are we to make of that statement? Does the president speak for the Iranian military?
Well, now we're hearing many statements, many messaging, many signaling coming out from the Iranian top officials. The war is overwhelming everything. So any messaging will take into consideration the situation they're in. President Pezeshkian is also trying to show power there at this position, especially with a lot of controversy in the past over whether he is capable of running the situation. He is trying to prove that, especially when he is messaging the armed forces. The main issue here, the bottom line for the Iranian leadership as a whole, as an establishment, is that Iran should be signaling power outside, should be emphasizing resilience and defiance inside.
Al Jazeera's Ali Hashem reporting live from Iran's capital, Tehran. Many thanks, Ali. Iran launched a barrage of missiles into central Israel earlier on Friday. Explosions were reported as air defense systems were activated. At least one person was injured. The attack caused damage at several sites in the city of Rehovot. Earlier, strikes by Hezbollah injured 2 people in northern Israel. A Palestinian was injured after fragments of an intercepted Iranian missile struck an area near the walls of the old city in occupied East Jerusalem. The fragments landed around 300 meters from the Al-Aqsa Mosque compound. Israeli police say that they were conducting searches to locate fallen parts of projectiles. And Iran has carried out another wave of attacks on regional countries. There have been drone and missile strikes across Kuwait, the UAE, and Saudi Arabia. A refinery was struck in Kuwait for the second day that Iran has targeted Mina al-Ahmadi refinery. The state-owned oil company says that no one was killed or injured. The facility is a major oil export hub. Let's go live to Kuwait City. Al Jazeera's Malik Trader is there. Tell us more about that hit, the second hit on that oil refinery, Malik.
Yeah, Adrian. Well, the Al Ahmadi port refinery, is just about 30 kilometers to the south in this direction to where I'm standing. You know, authorities yesterday said they worked throughout the night to put that fire out just for another attack this morning. That they say damaged one unit. They had to suspend operations. Nobody was injured. But, you know, according to the Ministry of Defense, the Kuwaiti Ministry of Defense, in the last 24 hours, they detected 1 ballistic missile, which was intercepted and destroyed, and 25 drones, which were detected within Kuwaiti airspace. They destroyed 15 of them, and they say that 8 fell in an empty area, which didn't pose a threat. But 2 drones hit the Al Ahmadi refinery port, and it shows the escalation of this conflict. And you know, we've seen an array of attacks, retaliation attacks from Iran today. You know, the UAE, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, all receiving drones and missile attacks today that they say they were dealing with, and the vast majority were intercepted.
Malik, the head of Qatar Energy has been speaking about the recent Iranian attack on the country's Ras Laffan facility. What did he have to say?
Yeah, well, I mean, he said that in the last, you know, after this evacuation, there was an evacuation order, and they pulled out more than 10,000 workers in 24 hours as a safety measure. You know, there's also planned expansions in the North Field. They say that could be delayed more than a year. Look, I think, you know, officials in this region were warning about the escalation of this before it happened, you know, when negotiations were taking place in Oman, you know, to bring up about a negotiation. But you know, the Americans, the Israelis went on and attacked and attacked Iran. And, you know, people have been warning about this. Nobody here wants to see an escalation. That Ras Laffan is the largest LNG facility in the world. About 20% of liquid natural gas comes from Qatar. You know, they said that the damages were extensive. They've lost 17% capacity. It could take 3 to 5 years to repair that. And it's estimated $20 billion annually of lost revenue. I mean, you know, the oil sector is the bread and butter. It's the...
This just in. So they've officially made Colombian President Gustavo Petro designated a priority target by U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration. So is he going to be the next Maduro? We haven't even heard anything on Maduro. He had his one little quick trial when he first came here, and I haven't heard anything on him since. Pretty interesting.
Escalation. They want negotiations that bring about a path towards long-time stability in this region.
Malik Trainer reporting live from Kuwait City. Malik, many thanks. Authorities in Dubai have closed a number of Iranian-linked institutions. The UAE government says the move targets facilities tied to Iran's leadership and the Revolutionary Guard, alleging that they were used for activities in breach of local laws. Among those affected is the Iranian hospital, known for providing affordable care, but also previously linked to alleged intelligence activity. Lebanon is struggling to provide for the hundreds of thousands of people displaced from the south and Beirut's southern suburbs. It's providing basic shelter, but relies on charities to provide much of the medical and food aid. Al Jazeera's Bernard Smith reports now from Beirut.
As soon as the fighting started, World Central Kitchen contracted 10 professional kitchens in Beirut to start preparing food. And since then, they've scaled up to 25,000 hot meals a day, providing essential meals to people internally displaced from southern Lebanon and the southern suburbs of Beirut.
Aline Kamakian owns 7 restaurants in Beirut, but this conflict means she's only able to keep 2 open. Catering for the NGO World Central Kitchen stops Aline going bankrupt and keeps her staff employed.
We are the fastest to respond. We are anticipating where the internally displaced people are arriving. We are being there almost before they come with hot meals, with water, with everything, so that they can feel that they are welcome, safe. They arrive to a kind of homey place.
Lebanon's cash-strapped government is relying on charities to provide for people in its shelters.
The food is good, the treatment is good, and they are really taking care of us.
The food is very good and they're not falling short with us at all. Last year too we were displaced to the same place.
More than 1 million people are now internally displaced in Lebanon because of the fighting between Israel and Hezbollah. That's almost 1/5 of the population. A lot of consideration goes into the menu. The food has got to be nutritious and provide some comfort, a taste of home for people who were forcibly evacuated from their homes with little or no notice and find themselves living in very basic circumstances and with little or no idea of when life will get back to normal. Bernard Smith, Al Jazeera, Beirut.
As we've been reporting, Iran has been targeting oil and gas facilities across the Gulf. It's triggered a sharp rise in oil and gas prices worldwide, threatening a prolonged impact on energy markets. Juliet Ager takes a look back now at some of those attacks.
Just days into the war, Iran began targeting energy facilities across the Gulf, among them all refineries in Saudi Arabia and Kuwait, ports in Oman and the United Arab Emirates, and in Qatar, the world's biggest LNG production facility. Then the attacks expanded. Iran hit the Fujairah oil industrial zone in the UAE, the largest storage for refined energy products in the Middle East. The city is on the east coast, so vessels don't need to pass through the Strait of Hormuz, which Iran has effectively closed. On March the 11th, Iranian drones struck fuel storage tanks in Oman, despite the fact that the country was mediating nuclear talks between the US and Iran before the war began. But Iran's own facilities are also under attack. Israeli airstrikes targeted 4 oil storage depots in and around the capital. Plumes of thick black smoke prompted health warnings. Iran has kept up its assault on regional energy facilities, targeting them more than once. This was the aftermath of another drone attack on Fujairah in the UAE. On March the 18th, a significant escalation. Israel bombed the South Pass gas field, the largest in the world, which is shared by Qatar and Iran. Around 85% of Iran's electricity comes from natural gas. Iran responded by attacking key...
To Steve Canyon, you're saying, do you all really think Iran set those mines in the strait? Really? Oh, we got some radio. EAM's coming in. Let me mute that really quick. Okay. Historically, yes, Iran has historically laid naval mines in the Strait of Hormuz and surrounding areas, primarily occurred during the Iran-Iraq War 1980 to 1988, specifically in the phase known as the Tanker War 1984 through 1988. Historically, in 1987, a U.S. reflagged supertanker SS Bridget struck the Iranian mine near Farsi Island while the U.S. Navy escort as part of Operation Earnest Will. April 1988, a frigate USS Samuel Roberts hit an Iranian mine. So reliable sources show that they have historically done it, and it was just, 40 plus years ago, 30 plus years ago. So, I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility for them to be the ones doing it. So I saw your comment, just made me think about it. I wanted to research it and make sure.
Global oil use. The IAE is calling for more remote working and greater use of public transport. It also recommends more car sharing to reduce fuel consumption. And it urges people to take fewer flights. Joining us now, Negar Mortazav, who's a senior non-resident fellow at the Center for International Policy, and Ross Harrison, who's a senior fellow at the Middle East Institute in Washington, D.C., and author of Decoding Iran's Foreign Policy. Good to see you both again. Ross, let's start with you. President Trump saying that his administration is struggling to find any leader in Iran to negotiate with. And yet, in the past 21
Oh, yes, I'm muted. So there is never done that before, right? so this basically is showing the 3 different locations. Basically, if you have 2 or more locations in the pizza index that are spiked, which, I mean, 145%, 217%, and 239%. I mean, sometimes these will get in the thousands, like 3,000, 4,000%. But these are definitely elevated. So that's a pretty good indicator there's more activity than usual. And then this gay bar thing I was showing you before, they're opposites. So when the pizza index is high and the gay bar usage is low, right now they're closed, right? So it's not really an indicator yet. But if this is low and the pizza index is high, that's a pretty good indicator that something is going on in the government and the Pentagon that's keeping them really busy. I don't know how the gay bar plays into it, but that's something they have here as an indicator.
Why war came back to them in less than a year. They don't want this to happen, and they're willing to, fight, take a very huge cost as they are. You talk to civilians on the ground in Iran, life is not as normal as it used to be, of course. So in between the wars also, we have to understand there's pressure and threat of the next war coming, and they want to remove that.
Trump earlier today said that that the U.S. is doing extremely well in Iran. I mean, but by what metric is he basing that on? Military damage, deterrence, or something else? I mean, given that contradiction between claiming success on the battlefield and then saying that there's effectively no diplomatic channel open between the 2 countries.
Clausewitz said that military fighting is basically a political act, right? That if you're going to fight, war is a continuation of politics by other means, exactly what he says. So if you're measuring success based upon destruction, which is probably what Donald Trump is saying, well, then I guess they're winning because they are destroying. But that's very, very different than shaping a political outcome. If war is a continuation of politics by other means, where's the politics here? The politics have to be in terms of meeting the political objectives, either eventually some kind of regional stability or some kind of rapprochement or some kind of arrangement with Iran. If they can't bring the regime down, they have to reconcile themselves. They have to have a political trial.
Who's playing smarter at the moment? Is Iran behaving like a playground bully who comes up against a weaker, but perhaps smarter opponent?
Which one? You're saying, is Iran playing that game?
Is the US behaving like a playground bully, not particularly smart, but strong, coming up against a weaker but much smarter opponent?
Right, but I don't know about smarter, but I think right now what we're seeing is a continuation of the pattern we've seen over the last number of decades, which is that Iran has never believed they can outmatch or match the United States or Israel militarily, which was the whole idea behind the thing called forward defense doctrine that came about after the Iran-Iraq war. And the idea was that they would push conflict away from Iran, and they did that through their proxies, Hamas and Hezbollah and the Hashd-e-Shaabi in Iraq and the Houthis. They did that by pushing conflict out. So they knew, they did everything they could to compete and create regional influence vis-a-vis Israel and the Gulf Arab states indirectly. So what they're doing now is a little bit an extension of the same thing. They realize they cannot win militarily. And they have no illusions about that. So what they're doing is using asymmetric means, as Nagar's talked about earlier, in terms of the Strait of Hormuz and trying to make the conflict expand horizontally in order to inflict enough pain, to Nagar's point, that this will never happen again. Inflict enough pain that they recreate deterrence. So it's not about military to military interaction, and it's not about destruction. It's about reaching some kind of new status quo that takes Iran and the United States, and hopefully the region, including Israel, in a better direction.
Nagar, we've been reporting that Tehran has come under attack yet again today. Today is Nowruz, a deeply symbolic moment in Iran. What message is that sending to the people that the US and Israel are striking at that time? Does targeting the capital during a national holiday like that risk strengthening cohesion rather than weakening it?
I mean, absolutely no regard for civilians, winning hearts and minds. Don't talk about it. This is a thousands-year-old national holiday. Like you said, the Persian New Year. There's also the Eid coming and the month of fasting, Ramadan. Combine this with the fact that one of the first targets was an elementary school. Hundreds of kids have been killed, lots of civilians, schools, hospitals, civilian infrastructure, oil, water, electricity, you name it. This is not just a war in the Islamic Republic. This is very much a war on civilians. From a viewpoint of a civilian underground, the attacks are indiscriminate. You don't know if you're the next target or not. A New Year, not New Year, you name it. There's been no mercy. And also there seems to be no real goal. I mean, they've talked about freedom. They've talked about Iranians taking over, their country or their institutions. But then at the same time, these bombs are falling from the sky. And just to your point about the playground bully, this is a bully that is coming to your house. It's not at the playground. So the Iranians have the
They're praying. I was wondering what that was.
They either, win it as in not losing. So winning for the Iranian side basically means not losing. From Donald Trump's viewpoint, I don't know what winning means because the objectives and the goalposts keep moving.
I've got about a minute left, Ross. If Washington believes that it's doing well, what would failure look like in this context?
It's a very good question. I mean, I know what success looks like from the Iranian perspective, which is surviving and recreating deterrence and denying the United States a win. What success would look like for the United States would be whatever Donald Trump can sell. And Donald Trump is going to have a difficult time selling this now if the Strait of Hormuz is not opened to, it's open to selectively, but if it's not, if 95% of the traffic is still blocked, then he would have one large fib to tell, in fact, that he's won. But I think one of the things he's a master of is sort of trying to bend for the American people anyway, for no one else, but for the American people, bend reality to his vision and his wish. So time will tell.
Ross, Harrison, Nagar, many thanks indeed once again.
Thank you.
This is Al Jazeera. Let's remind you of the main developments this hour.
This is Al Jazeera. Let's play some copywritten music. And it's interesting, the stuff that's copywritten. It's like the most like uneventful basic music from like 1980. All right, let's see. Added a few of you as moderators. I think you would have gotten an email or an alert or something. So congratulations on that. It's just always for people that are consistent and positive and helpful. Was it Ramadan that ended yesterday? Let's see. Someone was saying that, you know, the fact that we were attacking them on the holiday was kind of messed up. I know that in the Ukraine-Russia war, there were some days where they had holidays and there was no attacks. But there were others where there were. Let's see. Yes, it ended sunset March 19th. That's when Ramadan ended officially. You know what I think I might do, just because I was speaking muted earlier, is I might put like an indicator on the screen somewhere, like maybe like a little tiny audio thing near my like probably like over like under here, somewhere like right here, a little indicator that shows like the little audio waveform to show that I'm actually like able to speak or not. I have like 1,000 buttons in front of me. All right, let's see if the music's done.
He wants a fleet of warships from his alliance friends to help free the backlog of oil and cargo that passes through the vital route. It's a route important not just to America, but to Europe as well. Responsible for 1/5 of all global oil traffic, the Strait has been a lifeline of supply for Europe since Russia's invasion of Ukraine. But before another energy crisis has even had time to develop, a fracturing of the relationship between the United States and its European friends may pose a more imminent threat.
We don't need them, but it's interesting. I'm almost doing it in some cases, not because we need them, but because I want to find out how they react. I was very surprised with the United Kingdom. We've been with you. You're our oldest ally, and we spend a lot of money on, you know, NATO and all of these things to protect you.
But any pressure to join the conflict directly is not working with European allies.
While taking the necessary action to defend ourselves and our allies, we will not be drawn into the wider war.
This is not Europe's war. Nobody wants to go actively in this war.
Like the United States and Israel, we want to see an end to Iran's nuclear and missile programs. But we will not take part in this war. We have said this from day one.
All right, let's go to our White House correspondent, Kimberly Halkett, who joins us now. Kimberly, some frustration coming out of the White House, but is Donald Trump still pushing for EU allies to join the conflict?
Yeah, there's no question the U.S. president still has a strong interest in having NATO allies as well as allies in Asia to join the conflict. What we're hearing from the U.S. president in his latest Truth Social post on Friday is that he is essentially name-calling now some of these members, trying to bully them into joining the conflict, calling NATO members paper tiger, and also complaining that they don't like the high oil prices, but they don't want to join the coalition to protect the Strait of Hormuz. Now, the U.S. president started this push for support about a week ago when he name-checked 7 countries on social media. And since then, he has been putting on the pressure, whether it's online or, as you played just moments ago.
I'm sorry, but her voice is like nails on a chalkboard. We have some alerts coming in. We'll just switch to monitoring Israel and see if anything ends up coming in, usually from the initial alert itself. Not the sirens, but the alert is usually a couple minutes until missiles are incoming. If they intercept all of them, then we will not see anything on the cams. But if some get through the initial interceptions, then as they get closer to the ground, we might see some interceptors and stuff fire off. Every once in a while, we'll see something on the cameras. Any pixelation or anything that you see on the cameras? It looks like I see something on number 5 going across the sky. Do you see that? Yeah, everyone congratulate Dulcinea. I'm not sure exactly how to pronounce that. Dulcinea. Give her some round of applause or some hearts down in the chat for being promoted to a moderator. I saw something on the 5 cam. I'll show it if they do a... Let's see. Yeah, I'm trying to... Oh, we got more coming in. Usually if there's incoming, so I saw something that went across, but usually when something's happening, you'll hear the sirens go off on these cams too, and we're not seeing that right now. Doesn't mean that there's none incoming or this close, but we've had multiple warnings, multiple sirens, and usually it's within a few minutes. Yeah, the sirens are eerie. They're similar to our tornado sirens out here in Nebraska. As soon as you hear those, you just get like a sinking feeling, you know, like you're possibly moments away from death every time. It's kind of dark. Let's see. I think. Let me look at Nightbot. So it looks like drones, which the Iron Dome can pretty much take out every drone. I mean, obviously there's some might get through here and there, but they're pretty slow. But it looks like it's Iron Let's see, Iron Domes. Yeah, so it looks like right now it's drones, and I don't see any missiles that were launched at this point. Unless there were rockets launched. Let me see if there were rockets from Lebanon. Yeah, I don't see rocket alerts going off right now either. Interesting. Lots of lightning going on. I don't see much rain. I do in northern Israel. But I'm seeing lightning on all the camps, it seems like. So we did a poll. How long will this war last? Weeks, months, or years? Looks like it's about half and half between months and years. Debbie, that's interesting. So you have your dog trained to the sound of the sirens. That's kind of cool. Probably thinks it's a game or something. I mean, once you get into, hey, I see a couple grumblers. Royally Grand, how's it going? Trump will not last if the war lasts. He must end it. Yeah, that's, you know, there's been talks that he was talking about trying to look for an exit sometime soon. But it sounds like Netanyahu and him are not on the same page. So I don't know what's going to happen with that. So number 5. Yeah, so on any of these screens, if you see something fly by extremely fast, it's going to be rain or bugs because they're close to the camera. The rockets and the missiles and things you'll see go across the screen like a light kind of in the background. They won't typically be that close. Like a 747. So 5 minutes ago, we had a drone warning, and they haven't cleared it yet. But a drone flying from, I would assume from Lebanon, but if it's coming from Iran, I believe it takes like 2 hours. Let me see really quick. A Shahed. Let's see, drone flight time is 6 to 9 hours. So, you know, by the time they come, they've been on quite a journey, and they've been on radar for quite a while. Typical missile, let's see. Missile versus rocket versus drone. Time from Iran to Israel. ballistic missiles. So ballistic missiles can hit Israel from Iran in about 12 to 15 minutes. Drones are requiring up to 9 hours. I'm trying to see. It didn't say anything about rockets. Probably because they don't fire rockets from Iran. Let me see what it says about Lebanon. Okay, so from Lebanon, it looks like it takes about 40 minutes for a drone to get there. And it looks like rockets are anywhere from a few minutes to a few seconds. So, and typically they're attacking northern Israel, but they have been launching missiles to southern Israel during this conflict. Renata Sofia, I think a lot of people would probably agree with that, and they will. I think anyone who goes to large public gatherings anytime soon is probably not making a good decision either, especially in larger cities. They're going to be really, really easy targets. I don't give a damn. How's it going? Long time no see. Tag Ladyify, how's it going? So for the pixelation on these cameras, it's typically blocking like a secure location or something like that, or like to not give away operational intelligence. So it could be damage, it could be a military site, it could be who knows what, maybe something that gives away the location, the exact location of the camera. Well, we'll come back. Looks like they gave the all clear on that one for the drones. So I think they're clear in Israel right now.
Contend with emerging new national security imperatives, and this is one.
There may be discord amongst them, but there certainly seems to be a fairly united message at the moment that they do not want to be directly involved in this conflict in the Middle East. And I'm wondering if this is their argument appears to be, to me, my interpretation, that joining this would be like bringing a gun to a gunfight. There's just an extra gun in the fight. This is not going to help resolve the conflict anytime soon. In fact, it will only prolong it and cause more chaos and confusion and issues in the conflict as it stands.
Yeah, I don't think I would agree with that assessment. The more guns you have in a gunfight, the better for you, quite frankly. That being said, the focus has been on mine countermeasures, for instance, opening up the Strait of Hormuz to international commerce again. I think those are all longer-term issues to contend with. I think we need to see first the end of kinetic operations against Iran before we can see a wider opening up of the Strait of Hormuz. And even if NATO countries, or Asian countries for that matter, were to deploy forces with that specific purpose in mind, that's not something you can just snap your fingers and happens next Tuesday. It takes a while.
Yeah.
So I think the challenge here is more rhetorical than substantive. Rhetorically, the United States and its allies need to be more on the same page. And I think we've seen that just within the last 36 hours, where we've had 7 countries say that they would be willing to take, quote unquote, appropriate measures in terms of operations.
That's an important point to pick up on, Donald, because today the United Kingdom has agreed for the US, just today, to use its bases to launch strikes when it directly relates to the Strait of Hormuz. That is an expansion of its involvement so far. Europe does need the strait to be opened, so is there an argument that it is in its best interest to become involved if that is going to be the goal and the outcome, to get the strait open?
Well, there's certainly an argument like that, and to some extent I would share it. But again, I would stress here that this is not just, adding to what my friend said, not just a military crisis. This is a geopolitical crisis, and I would argue almost civilizational, since you see, frankly, a contempt by a lot of people in the U.S. administration for a lot of European societies. Now, I'm not going to take one side or the other, but just to say this is a talk about values. This is a talk about more than just winning the war. Certainly, I think that the U.S. and its allies will wear down the Iranian regime. But this is a deeper problem that goes to a lot of issues that we've talked about in the past 15 to 20 years, but especially intensively now. And I would argue and point out that a lot of these countries that are, as you say, don't want to bring the gun to the table, these countries have domestic constituencies that British Prime Minister Macron and others, Merz, have to deal with, especially on their, let's call it, patriotic right.
Yeah.
And these are issues of how to deal with civilizational immigration. So for the first time, I think in a long time, the external challenge that the Iran crisis presents is now wrapped up in a way we haven't seen a lot recently in terms of the issues of where does Italy or France or Germany go. So this is requires a multidimensional approach to solve, to ease the problem, but above all requires cooperation. We don't see a lot of that right now.
Yeah, you mentioned there Emmanuel Macron, because breaking step somewhat with many other European nations, France's Emmanuel Macron has shown an interest in protecting shipping routes.
I reiterated that once the situation calms down, France is ready alongside other nations to take responsibility for a ship escort system in the Strait. However, we will not participate in any forced opening of the Strait in the context of ongoing military operations and bombings.
Once it calms down, Donald, what would be the measurement of once it calms down?
That's a tough question, isn't it? I think in his own way, he's drawing a line in the sand there. And this line can be interpreted in various ways, but particularly the French, maybe the Brits, the Germans all have their leaders have all now strongly condemned the military action. And what I think Macron just suggested is a much more, not passive or benign, but much more non-military posture in the region, because ultimately the Hormuz issue is about the economies of their countries. And that's really, again...
So this is pretty interesting here. This is Poseidon again. They do recon and ISR, and they can sniff out nuclear radiation. It just got done near Lubbock doing a bunch of, not necessarily circles. These look like triangles, but I don't know if that was some kind of holding pattern or if it was actually surveilling this area specifically. But that's kind of interesting. And I've not seen any of these. These are all Poseidons. I haven't seen any of them actually out over the water as far as surveillance goes. Looks like they're all just over land and surveilling over land, which interesting. Let's see if there's one over here too. Usually there's at least a couple. One surveilling over the UAE and out here off the east coast of Qatar. Interesting. They're probably looking at targets to hit, like those fast attack boats and things. More stratotankers showing up, which means they probably refueled, and now they're flying with their transponders on. Pizza's gone up 145, 217, 239, so that's still going strong. And see, remember we talked about the radiation spots earlier, so I don't see any red at this point on the map. So they fluctuate throughout the day. Yeah, so still nothing, no major changes or anything at the moment.
Hormuz, it doesn't help Europe, does it? So, but it also, conversely, that doesn't help the US president. So is there a strategy here that either of you could see from Europe that holding off and allowing oil prices to rise and allowing that strait to close keeps the pressure on the US president to draw the...
Debbie Smith, thanks for the super sticker and for becoming a member. William, thanks for gifting 5 memberships. Very, very nice of you. Renata, thanks for the super chat. Thank you so much for doing this for us. I mean, I think this is something I've gone to other places where I'll try to get coverage and get information, and it seems like they hold back on the stuff they show. They only show half of things, and or they don't show much of anything. They just sit, like, typically they'll be sitting on, like, this screen. They'll be sitting on this screen here like this for, like, 10 hours and just, like, waiting for something to happen and not really saying much. And then every once in a while, they'll pull up, like, a news article or something, and it just seems really lazy to me. But I try to give you guys more information and better information. Obviously, people need to make a living off this stuff if it's their full-time job. But I see some of the bigger channels, they've been doing it long enough that they don't really have to put much effort into it. They just kind of hang out, and people just come hang out with them. So, good situation for them to be in, but not always the best. Not always the best stream for people. Hey, Draw Latina, how's it going?
Are working with others to come up with a credible plan for the Straits of Hormuz to ensure that we can reopen shipping and passage through the strait. Let me be clear, that won't be, and it's never been envisaged to be, a NATO mission.
I know, what does this mean when we hear those sorts of comments? We talk a lot about the rhetoric but versus the action. Is this a tipping point for the way NATO decides to move forward? Can we expect a unified response in the future, or will we see, as we have seen today in the 7 countries you pointed out, each country choosing to take a different stance, and that will just keep shifting as the conflict progresses?
So I don't think you're going to see NATO as the alliance dispatching forces, deploying forces into the Gulf. I don't see that happening. I think there may be individual member states that may bring capabilities into post-conflict operations. And actually that makes sense because there's some navies that have, for instance, mine countermeasure capabilities that other navies do not, including the U.S. Navy. So I personally believe that this is, you know, a blip on the U.S.-NATO relations, and certainly not at the same level as others that we've seen before.
Okay, he's calling it a blip. Donald, last word to you.
Well,
does this change? Does this change the nature of U.S.
I would raise the question as well whether the Europeans will use this, I hate to say opportunity, this chance to raise pressure on other issues which may well be almost as concerning as Hormuz. In particular, the European clear displeasure with Trump's approach to Ukraine, that they might say, okay, we will help you, Mr. President, on Hormuz if you are more solicitous about Ukraine's military and economic needs. That could happen. But again, there's Vladimir Putin's out there somewhere in the Moscow area. Okay. And Putin may well, and I think he is, trying to use this as an opportunity to have a reconciliation more complete than the past few months with the United States. So Putin will be hanging around waiting to split the alliance, and I'm sure he'll do all he can to make that happen.
We'll save that one for another day. Donald Jensen, former diplomat, and Hanno Klink, former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defence for East Asia. Thank you both for coming in.
Thank you.
Well, the White House has embraced social media as part of its campaign to call out NATO allies. Here's Alex Baird.
Senator Lindsey Graham giving a look behind the Oval Office doors, saying he's never seen Trump so angry, all because of Europe and NATO's lack of support in the Gulf. Graham now questioning the value of those alliances. The replies to that coming in hot and fast, saying, of course Europe wouldn't want anything to do with this. Trump now saying that any support from NATO is...
As far as I'm concerned, it's too late.
In a new Truth Social post, the president labelled NATO a paper tiger, saying his allies are cowards and that he would remember. Other conservative commentators backing Trump, saying statements like this from NATO are too little, too late. But that approach to Europe has split the Republicans. Congressman Don Bacon saying the tone from the White House is appalling and that the denigration of US allies has been terrible. Other voices telling the president he has gall to accuse NATO of having a very bad future, considering his threats over Greenland, Canada, and his lack of recognition over the bloc's troops. This video from conservative heavyweight Bill O'Reilly with a warning.
So the USA is alone in dismantling Iran, along with Israel, of course, but pretty much alone. And that is not a good situation.
A widening gulf between the US and its allies that O'Reilly says is not a good situation to be in.
Or what their potential.
That's all from DC. We head back to Doha.
This is out of...
Okay, now I'm really curious because we're hearing a lot of airplanes. I wonder if those planes we're hearing are actually the refuelers, like the stratotankers. Because I think we've had like 5 or 6 in the last 20 minutes. Let's see, people asking, so you want the ads? So usually the way it works is for channels that are sponsored or have enough members to pay for their bills for the month, for example, like say if you take a channel like Agenda Free, he probably has thousands of members each month. So all the money that he needs for all of his bills and all of his stuff, his expenses, is probably paid by just the memberships alone. So he doesn't really care if he has ads and stuff during his stream. And he also probably has sponsorships. And if he doesn't, he's also got, you know, all the stuff that he gets during the streams for like super chats. So super chats will make up for all of the ads. But for smaller channels, we depend on the ads to actually get any income. So if we do like a 3 or 4 hour stream and it's not showing any ads and there's very little or no super chats, then we didn't make any money. So that's why I was asking, because it seemed like people were telling me that YouTube wasn't showing that many ads on the stream. And I have it set to like medium. I don't have it set to high ads, so I don't expect them to be like constant. But if they're not happening at all, then that's not good. You don't have to just sit and watch ads all day. But yeah, I just want to see if they were showing any, because I want to make sure they're not purposefully not showing them, if you know what I mean. They do seem to throttle some channels, and I just want to make sure mine wasn't having that happen. For those that say they don't see it, you might have ad blockers turned on or something similar, or you might have premium or something. I want to see if I can locate that cam that has the planes flying over the top, because I'm really curious now if, see all these refuelers here that are sitting over this area? I'm really curious if one of those cams is these planes flying over the top of them that we keep hearing every once in a while. Would it be Jerusalem? Let me see. Because you hear that plane right now? I just heard a plane. And it looks like maybe like the number 6 cam. Maybe it's the number 6 cam that's playing. Well, I guess they have the airport there too in central Tel Aviv. I'm not sure exactly where that's at. Where's that sit? Tel Aviv Airport. So it's Ben Gurion. Where's that on the map? And I'm way zoomed in. Okay, so Ben Gurion's way on the west coast by the West Bank. So that's like Ben Gurion's somewhere in here. So I guess it could be just a camera near there, maybe, and not necessarily the refuelers. I just thought that'd be an interesting coincidence if it was that. All right, we have that back on. Good there. Yeah, we've had lightning going in Israel for, well, really the whole time we've been on the stream. I think it started shortly after, so at least a couple hours. Let's see.
General Mujtaba Khamenei's message, Nowruz message, but of course, for the second time, we are reading a statement, we're not seeing the man.
Ali, Iran's president also delivered a Persian New Year address today. He said that Tehran doesn't seek war with its neighbors. Masoud Pezeshkian is blaming Iran's enemies for regional tension.
We propose that to establish peace and stability in the region, a regional security structure be formed from Islamic countries, ensuring peace, security and stability. We do not need the presence of outsiders in the region. We can establish an Islamic assembly of the Middle East among the Islamic countries of the region, and within this assembly develop security, economic and cultural relations with one another. We must not fight each other or fall into the trap that has been laid for us.
Ali, what do we read into that message from the Iranian president to his Gulf neighbors?
There must be a fire department or something really close to that cam, because it's regularly going off even when there's no missiles or anything incoming. Must be near a hospital or something. All right, I'm gonna mute that. So make sure you guys hit that like, subscribe if you haven't already, if you enjoy the content. You can also go over to my other second channel, which has 24/7 monitoring. Currently it has the Iran war, but I'm also going to add in Russia and Ukraine probably this evening or tomorrow morning and have both going 24/7. They will restart once a day, but I'll update the news and the cams and everything and make sure things are running as much as possible. And so far it's been running pretty smooth. And also, if you guys want to help out the channel, there's links down in the description. There's a lot of different ways. Like I said, just hitting the like is one of the best ways to get it out there. And then obviously super chats and things help. Buying merch, any of that kind of stuff. I know people can't always do that, so I don't expect it. But it's very much appreciated when people do. Dra Latina, thanks for the large super. I'm enjoying this channel for updates and your other channel for the streaming. Sado Gaming, no, you didn't guilt me into this. Yeah, I wasn't trying to guilt anyone. I was genuinely curious because even like my wife, she'll go on and she'll be, watching a stream and she'll say, I just realized during that entire stream, there was not one ad. So what that means is if there's no ads playing, then there's no income. There's no money that's made from the stream besides a couple of super chats, right? So that's why I was curious. The other channel is actually, I'll just paste the link in here. It might be a little bit easier. See if YouTube will let me share the link directly. So at any given time, there's a 24/7 stream that's running. This link right here, Off Script Radio. But yeah, hit that like, subscribe, and share. Make sure you check out Off Script. It's a good place just to hang out, and obviously talk to other people. But you also get the information, the intel, the live cams. I have emergency action messages and military radio piped into that as well. I have 2 large antennas in the back of my home, and it's pretty slick too. There's some automation. So for example, like when alarms and alerts go off and the sirens, it will automatically switch to the Israel live cams. And that's one of the major issues people have with these automated streams is it'll just like every 30 seconds it'll switch to a different screen. But if like an alert or something goes off, you're just stuck looking at whatever you're looking at while there's bomb sounds and stuff going on, you know, like you're hearing explosions, but you're looking at flight radar. So I have it set up so when action happens, it actually switches to the proper cams and stuff like that. So, and I'll keep adding features and stuff like that as long as everything stays stable. I'll keep upgrading it too. Let's see. Ben Jehovah, genuine question: do you, the creator, make money off me, the premium subscriber? Yes, there is. I'm not sure exactly how it works, but if you're, so basically if you're not a premium subscriber, then the way that we make money off of it is if you watch ads. Even if you don't watch the whole ad, if you just like get served ads, then that goes towards it. If you're a premium subscriber, somehow the amount of money that all premium subscribers across the board make gets split up somehow. You know, a portion of it gets split up somehow amongst creators, probably based on the size of their channel and how many views they get and that kind of stuff. But yes, that does go towards it if you're premium. And then obviously super chats and stuff go towards it. So it's an interesting system. Multiple layers of availability to make money. But if you're not getting a ton of views, like some of the channels you see that get, I don't know, like you'll see some of the bigger channels will get, you know, thousands of people, which I used to get thousands of people in my live streams for Charlie Kirk. I think at one point I peaked at like maybe 4,000 or 5,000 people were in there. And then when I had Baron on, I think we had like 9,000 or 10,000, something like that. But obviously brought his audience over. But when you have that many views, you don't really have to worry about any of this stuff because you're making plenty of money. But when the views go down and you only have like a few hundred people in your streams, which is typical for these this stream right here. The first night I had like 1,500, and then it went down to like 800, then 600, then 500, depending on time of day too, right? So like right now, if you go to, yeah, like someone said, Ryan Hall, y'all. So if you look at like Ryan Hall, Baron, Candace, even Coach, like he does the morning streams where he's getting like probably like between 7 and I think I've seen him between like 7 and like 12 or 14,000 people live for like 2 or 3 hours. During those streams, they're making thousands of dollars between super chats and like just views and ads and that kind of stuff. They're making tons of money. So yeah, I mean, it makes a big difference. So like during the Charlie Kirk stuff, I didn't have to worry about money at all. You know, I think a lot of people were in that same situation. There were so many views happening on Charlie Kirk content that people were getting, you know, tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of views automatically on every video. And I know a lot of people were very comfortable for like the last 5 or 6 months. And now things are slowing down. YouTube changed the homepage and made it so it's mostly shorts and not long form content like this. So the regular videos and the streams aren't really getting seen as much. So a lot of people across the board, it's not just me. It's like completely across the board. There's way less views. Even Mr. Beast was talking about it. Obviously, you know, he gets billions of views, but, you know, on his multiple different channels and stuff, but he said even his are down significantly. So it just comes with the reality, you know, it's their platform. They can do what they want, and we're kind of at the mercy of what they give us. And then obviously they push certain people and they block other people. So we'll see how it goes. I'll keep pushing. We'll see how far we can get. Drelatina, thanks for becoming a new member. Drelatina, thanks for the super. Do you make money for chat interaction? Do you have to give part of your membership money to YouTube? Sorry to ask, but I'm curious how to better support you. That's a good question too. So, the best way to explain that is so for chat, no. So like doing polls, talking to people in the chat, all that stuff, there's no monetization at all for that. I think it does function though for YouTube to want to push the stream out more, just like a like, because there's interaction going on. Let's see. You have to give part of your membership money to YouTube. So for memberships, for super chats, super thanks, everything across the board, YouTube gets like anywhere from 30 to 55%. So pretty big chunk. So a lot of people will do, like they'll ask for donations to PayPal or, I mean, honestly, like probably like PayPal would probably be the best where like you lose the least amount of money. But I know some people have like Venmo and different things set up or like buy me a coffee. But YouTube, super chats and stuff like that, and memberships, we only get like between 40 and 60% of it. So I hope that answers your question on the way. All right, let's see. Yeah, chat volume does affect the algorithm for sure. Just the more stuff going on in general. So as far as Rumble, so I'm on Rumble and Spotify, and I think in like a typical month at Spotify, I mean, if you're talking about the exact same amount of views, I don't know how that goes. But for people like us, where like YouTube's our main channel, and then we have secondary channels like Rumble and Spotify and Kick and stuff like that, and Twitch, usually the income on the other platforms is very minimal. Like, for example, like on Rumble, I want to say I don't do a ton over there. I just stream these sometimes over there. But I think an average month is like $4. I mean, it's like laughable. And Spotify might be like maybe $100, right? Like, it's not a huge amount. There are certain creators that have, you know, hundreds of thousands of subscribers on multiple platforms, and that's different. So if I had 100,000 subscribers on Spotify, 100,000 subscribers on Rumble, then I'd probably make another, you know, few hundred or a few thousand maybe a month. But let's see. But either way, I appreciate people watching on all the different platforms. It's nice to see the Rumblers in here. What happened, Coder? What happened to your dog? Let's see. I don't see where you said something about your dog. I'm not sure what happened, but I appreciate you sharing that, and you know, we'll pray that your dog's okay. Yeah, Charlie Kirk definitely brought people up. I mean, there were so my channel was doing decent. I think I was doing it for like 4 months, and I had like 30 or 40,000 subscribers at that point. And for a firearms channel, that's, you know, that's pretty quick growth, because they typically hold down the Second Amendment channels pretty hard. And I want to say once I started the Charlie Kirk stuff, I got like 75,000 ish, like 65 or 75,000 subscribers within like, you know, another 3 to 6 months. So pretty quick growth off of that stuff. Like I said, everyone did pretty well financially and that kind of thing too. Got a lot of information out, a lot of good investigation. Obviously, some people are still carrying that on. I still look at the Candace stuff, and I still follow some of it. But the main stuff that people were really talking about has already been talked about. Most people that are talking about it are recycling the same stuff over and over again, constantly. So you'll see them have the same conversation that they had. If you go and look at the previous stuff from months ago, they're just talking about the same stuff on loop. Yeah, Draw Latina, it's interesting because I've had people that came here for Charlie Kirk content and some of the interviews and stuff I've done, and then they found my gun content, and now they're hooked on that too, and they're learning how to shoot and all that kind of stuff, so it's interesting. All right, I'm going to have to take my daughter to physical therapy. So I'm going to, I want that, there we go. I'm going to call it here. There's a pretty good chance I might be on definitely tomorrow, but possibly even this evening. And I'm probably going to try and get up a video on Candace, her last live show that she did, because there's some interesting stuff in there that maybe kind of clicked a few things. So I appreciate everyone being here. I appreciate all the super chats, all the help, support, everyone just being here, hanging out. Yeah, RIP Chuck Norris. That's terrible. He was invincible. So, you know, if he's gone, what hope do we have? I'm just kidding. But he was an awesome guy. My childhood was all Chuck Norris for the most part. But have a great weekend if I don't see you. And I'll see you on the next one.